We have call to order, please, and a salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The New Jersey Open Public Meeting Act was enacted to ensure the rights of the public to have advance notice of and to attend meetings, the meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interests is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this Act, the Board Secretary has caused notice of this meeting, including date, time, and location, to be posted in the South Brunswick Public Library and in the Board office, filed with the Township Clerk and communicated to the Home News Tribune and the Star Ledger. Mr. Plowsty, can we have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Deepa Karthik? Yeah. Mr. Raja Krishna? Yeah. Mr. Ray Keener? Here. Mr. Mike Mitchell? Dr. Smitha Raj? Yeah. Mrs. Lisa Rogers?
Here.
Mr. Joseph Scoletti? Mr. Barry Nathanson?
Here.
Mrs. Joyce Mehta?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, David. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Township of South Brunswick hereby moves into an executive session in accordance with Sunshine Law, Chapters 231 of the Public Laws of 1975 and JSA 10-4 through 6 through to 10-421 to discuss the following: communications covered by attorney-client privilege. Be it further resolved that the discussion conducted in executive session can be disclosed to the public at such time as the matters have been resolved. Formal action may be taken at the meeting. Can I have a motion, please, to go into executive?
So moved.
Mr. Nathanson, seconded by Dr. Raj. Any discussions? Any nays? Any abstentions? Seeing none, we move into executive. Good evening, South Brunswick. We need a motion to move back into public session. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Mr. Krishna, seconded by Mr. Nathanson. Any discussion? Any nays? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Moving on onto the agenda. Can we have an approval of the agenda, please? I need a motion. Dr. Raj, seconded, please.
Second.
Mr. Mitchell, any discussion? Any nays? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Moving on to the next portion of this agenda, and that is the discussion for which we are all here today, the board governance issues related to leadership on the board. And we can open this up for discussion.
Okay, so from a point of order, the board have agreed to allow Mr. Fetter to speak on the board's behalf. We've given him the privilege in the executive session to move forward with that. So we're going to turn it over to Mr. Fetter and have him read a statement. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just to clarify, the privilege that the board has waived is the attorney-client privilege with the board and the attorney. That's the privilege that's been waived. So everyone knows what we've done is we've asked our attorney a series of questions, I think about 25 to 30 questions actually, and she provided the board with those responses. As a result of the waiving of the privilege, the board is able to then share those responses, and those responses refer to conversations or any at all communications that have happened between Mrs. Mehta and Mrs. Wright, or another attorney in the office is Mr. Disler, and that's what's been provided to the board. I'm not reading all of that. I'm going to try and read a statement in reference to the claims that have been made and go from there. So 3 words: accountability, transparency, and honesty have been words that have been brought into play in the last few weeks. This meeting was called at the request of President Mehta so that she would be given time to consider her actions and communications with the board and the community. She asked for time to think about these issues and her role on the board moving forward. That is why we are here. Mrs. Mehta had informed the public and this board of the following. Because some members of the public and some fellow board members have questioned my credibility, if the board were willing to waive attorney-client privilege, then I would have no objection to all of my communications with Mrs. Wright being released to the public. I want to be fully transparent. This is why we have collected this evidence. I and the board attorney have been asked by the board to obtain information and documents regarding the statements that Mrs. Mehta has made to both the board and the community. My role tonight is to provide accurate, factual information, not to give you opinion. There were public concerns expressed at the last board meeting. Here is specific information so that the board can make informed decisions as how to proceed. I want to start, though, if you follow Facebook or you have read any of the articles that I have seen, whether it be the TAP, Patch, I actually had to reach out to the TAP on Saturday or Sunday when an article came out that was wrong on every single statement made, factually incorrect. And regardless of what anyone thinks about anything, we can't have factually incorrect information. The author agreed, he pulled it down. I do believe it's been, a different one has been posted. Unfortunately, that article, as well as the Home News article, the Patch, the TAP, all have misinformation. So I'm going to hopefully try to make it very clear as to what has not ever at any point been in question by the board, at any point. So here are the points that have not been in question by this board, myself, or any administration. One point that is not at issue is whether Mrs. Mehta had the authority to call the attorney after receiving a letter questioning her actions. Clearly, as will be shown on the video, as well as Mrs. Wright's conversation, that there has not been a question to this. In fact, as part of the beginning of the executive session that took place on March 3rd before the retreat, we opened discussing communications. And prior to looking at anything related to a bill, I personally read verbatim the policy of the board, which states to every single board member heard, that the authority of the board president to call the attorney is absolutely allowed. At no time on any component watching any video you may have watched on the 3rd or the 10th, read anything that's been posted anywhere by a board member or administration, does it even suggest that is an issue. Yet, on posts and in almost all the articles I read, that has been made an issue. It is not, it has not, it remains not an issue. Number 2, that Mrs. Mehta used the board attorney for personal benefit. At no time did the board or administration make any claim that Mrs. Mehta used the board attorney for her personal information. At no time. Yet, that was all over Facebook and all over the articles. Those things are not in question by this board. Number 3, that Mrs. Mehta cost the district $25,000. Another term never used by the board, never mentioned, never stated. The sad part of our media is they actually read Facebook posts to write an article. That's what actually happened. You can tell by reading the articles that they didn't ask us. They simply read posts, assumed truth. And I think this community's heard me say long enough about what I think about Facebook and reading Facebook and believing everything you read. This is what happens. Number 4, that Mrs. Mehta violated ethics by trying to appoint and remove anyone from a committee. At no time has ethics been raised in reference to Mrs. Mehta asking to remove Mr. Nathanson from a committee and implanting a different person. At no time have ethics been raised to that issue. In fact, the letter that was provided to Mrs. Mehta talked about the appearance or the risk of being considered to not have impartiality and could be perceived as a lack of integrity. At no time were ethics mentioned at all. So those 4 issues continuously seem to be made up by Facebook members as well as the media. I wanted to clear the air on that so we can move off of that. That is now official, and hopefully that will be that. And we'll see if the media can get it right this time. Here is what the exact issue is and has been since March 3rd. In fact, prior to March 3rd, there wasn't an issue that would have caused all of you to be here tonight or any of this to be anywhere. Mrs. Mehta, in executive session, after I read the bylaw, which I shared with you, was asked a simple, straightforward question in regard to a line in an invoice. Rather than following the attorney's advice, which was to be honest, truthful, and own it, Mrs. Mehta selected to not be forthcoming with the board and the community. This, again, is not in question at this point. It's already been apologized. It's been brought up. This is not my opinion. This is factual at this point. To be clear, there was no confusion on Mrs. Mehta's part, and how we know that is twofold. First, Mrs. Mehta made the following claim in her Facebook post and her reading of the post in public last Thursday evening. Quote, "Unfortunately, I believed incorrectly. I now understand that my communications with the board attorney would be kept confidential. Because I expected that my communications with the board attorney would not be disclosed to others, because they involved an allegation against me personally, I was taken aback when challenged on them at the board retreat, and I became defensive." Okay, we're going to examine that really quick. Again, facts. On January 12th, during the first conversation that Mrs. Mehta had with the attorney, the board attorney explained how privilege and that the privilege of conversations she has with the attorney are not hers, however, belong to the Board of Education. Here is the excerpt to this effect from a question posed to Mrs. Wright. Mrs. Wright reports having a 54-minute conversation with Mrs. Mehta on January 12th. This conversation began with a discussion of whether she was permitted to speak with me, Mrs. Wright, as legal counsel for the board. I explained that as the board president, she had the right to speak with legal counsel. She inquired as to whether our communications were confidential. I advised that I and my firm are the board's counsel, which means that the full board is our client. As the board president, she has the right to speak with me. I explained that the privilege belongs to the board. I also explained that I would not share our communications with Mr. Fetter, but that my ethical responsibility is to the board and the privilege belongs to the board. I did not further explain how that works, because Mrs. Mehta identified herself as an attorney and indicated she understood when I said that the firm's and my client is the board. Number 2, Mrs. Mehta called the attorney on the night of the retreat, March 3rd. And they spoke about this exact topic, where Joyce, was given the guidance and advice as follows. And then, so I'll just go from there. Here is the direct information from the attorney. Mrs. Mehta called me in the afternoon on March 3rd. During our conversation, Mrs. Mehta asked about whether our legal invoices could be discussed in executive session. I advised that they could, as they were communications between legal counsel and the board. She expressed concern that the bills included her name in connection with the phone calls that we had. She expressed concern that she would be asked about the bills and our communications. I told her that she had done nothing wrong in communicating with the legal counsel, as the board president is permitted to do so. I further advised her to own it with regards to communicating with our office, to be truthful with the board. Mrs. Mehta shared today that while she is an attorney, is not an attorney in this country, has never practiced, and I believe stated does not know how bills work, does not know how to read a bill, understand when the bill, does not understand the bill. However, personally, Mrs. Mehta and I also had a conversation at 11:25 a.m. on March 3rd. During that call, which of course I recorded, we discussed exactly what was going to be happening in the meeting later that evening. Reggie, can I ask you to play the video, please? No reason for any more communication about that. The video will speak for itself as to what occurred during that conversation.
One part, that's all. It's about our billing. We have to go over the billing with the lawyer billing. We have it's lawyer billing and how we communicate with the lawyer. So that's why I need to do that part in executive.
Okay.
I can't do the lawyer billing in public. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand out I can send it to you in advance also. I'll send you the document. It's Porzio's invoice. We get an invoice every month.
Okay.
From Porzio. So in this particular case, they seem to have charged us 16 hours for the ethics training. So, which is kind of a lot. So that part we have to go over. And then I want to share with the board how we do communicate with our attorneys.
Okay.
And there's been questions. There were emails going back and forth with you and Barry. So I think we just have to get this out clear to everybody, how we communicate with the lawyer and how this works.
Okay.
And that's so that I can't do in public.
Okay. So would that fall, this billing thing, all I'm asking you, right, is that would that fall? Because I know that we're restricted as to what we can discuss in executive, right, about personnel and negotiations, whatever.
So in executive, so there's no issue. I've riced myself. I looked at the whole agenda.
Okay.
You know, there's no names on it except for mine. So
What do you
because
mean?
of that, well, my name is on here. You had conversations about me with the lawyers. So I have to just make sure my name, I have to cover myself. There's no other staff members discussed in this matter. So I don't have to, I looked through it all for that exact reason. Even though it says email with Kim Malloy and with David, blah, 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 that's our jobs. But there's one part in here, review documents from me to you. So I always play it clean. I'd rather just rice myself so there's no question when someone says we can't talk about that. Yes, you can, because I'm waiving my right. That way we can have real conversations with people and not, you know, we have to be transparent with everybody. So they have to see what these bills, you know, this was a problem that I don't know what happened. I called Kerry. She's looking into it. I might get an answer, you know, before the meeting about the 16 hours. But, you know, and we're going to take the opportunity to share why they see my name so often, Kim's name and David's name. And they don't ever see Jen's name because Jen never calls the attorney. And they don't see Raphael's name because Raphael calls a different attorney. So it's an opportunity. It's a board retreat. Give some learning, some instruction, and a chance to talk about communication. It's already on the agenda related to how we communicate with the attorney. So there you go.
Okay.
I'll send you the document as well. After we're done with this, I don't want to mess up this, so that you have
Okay.
it in front of you as well. And then I'll hand it out at the meeting. I'm not going to hand it out in advance of the meeting. I'll hand it out just at the
Okay.
meeting.
Okay. So that's why you wanted it to be an executive to talk about the
But we
billing?
have to. Yeah, I can't do that in public.
No, but I didn't realize that when Smita had written communications, obviously I had no idea until now that we're
That's why I
talking
said I was
about
going to call you
attorney.
later, because this is new to us. Like, this came in, we haven't had an issue before. So I looked back at last year, and it was only 5 hours charged to us for ethics training. So kind of why, but then it gives us a chance to at least say, we can educate the board on how our attorneys work. Raf calls Comegno. I call Kerry or Vito. David calls usually David or Kerry, and Kim only calls Kerry.
Okay.
Just so we can see, it's important they understand that. This is a large amount of money. This is
Yeah.
usually anywhere from a $4,000 to $8,000 bill. That doesn't even include negotiations
Yeah.
on any given month, depending on what we're doing and what cases we have or what legal matters we need. So as far as Smitha, I spoke to Smitha. She didn't, no, that wasn't for her. She just wants, she wants to be able to talk about communications and email exchanges and all of it. I mean, listen, it has not been clean. It has not been simple. We've had issues as a board, right? We can't deny
Yeah.
that. So trying to get out of all that, we'll do it in public for the most part, but this part can't be done in public.
Okay. That's fine. Okay, then. So that was the only thing that I've asked her, Deepa, now to email me. And she's saying I already emailed at 10:54 yesterday morning. So I don't know if she's going to send up any follow-up emails.
Yeah, I did
So
see
that's
an
gonna be
email. So did you respond to that email?
No.
Okay, well, that email's already there. Why are we not responding to that email?
Okay. So I didn't want to see I can respond back, but I wanted to
Yeah.
discuss with you, right? I didn't want to respond back and then for you not to agree with what I've written in the email, right?
Well, you
So
can
I can
say
respond back. That's
It's kind of
no
what you
problem.
just said, right? I mean, there was a mix-up. You can
Yeah.
say that it was advertised at 6:15, and, that's the big thing. It was advertised at 6:15. So, but we're gonna go, I can put out an email also, but you should respond to her. If someone
Okay.
sends you an email, I would always advise you to respond.
Okay.
But,
With the timing, I wanted us to be on the same page
Totally
about the
fine.
timing.
The timing is it was posted as 6:15. The original discussions were 6:15. Somehow it changed to 7 at some point, and we needed to move it back to where it was posted. That's the whole answer.
Fine.
That's it.
Fine. So I'm going to CC you on that.
Yeah, always CC me if you can. That's helpful.
I'm going to CC you on that. And what about Smita's email? So I'm going to have to, I'll reply back to that.
Which one is Smitha's email?
1 second.
I'm also sending you the Porzio, just so you have it, Joyce, okay?
Yeah, okay.
So you have that. Smitha's email, hold on a minute, let me look.
Yeah, you're on it.
Yep.
You, me, and Mike. She sent it yesterday at 10:55.
I spoke to her after.
Just so we don't get too lost. This was a conversation about that we're going to be going over the invoice. It includes line items and how that works. The attorney has shared extremely clearly in a communication both on January 12th and again at 2 or 2:30, I forget which time, on that exact night, that the privilege belongs to the board. That happened on January 12th, and it happened again on March 3rd before that session. That email that you saw that I sent that at 11:34 a.m. Today, during executive session, under the witness of both Mrs. Mehta's personal attorney as well as our board attorney, Mrs. Mehta informed the board that she had not read that email before the executive session at 6 o'clock. However, in the course of the conversation that continued, she did share that she did speak with Carrie Wright, the board attorney, and at that time had a discussion about that same bills list, which she apparently did not read until 6 o'clock. I'm going to move on to the next point. To further add information in this regard as to what was discussed on January 12th, going back to the retreat on the 3rd, which if you have seen the retreat, these were the responses provided by Mrs. Mehta as to what actually happened when she called the attorney. 1, she spoke to the attorney about the reorg meeting from 6 days prior. 2, she spoke to the attorney about the Robert's Rules of Order. 3, she did not recall any documents sent to the attorney. Just as a matter of fact, on January 12th, the date that she's saying she did not remember, or if there were even any documents, Carrie has shared that there were 9 documents shared by Mrs. Mehta to the attorney. 9. She did not recall any documents. During the meeting, the questions surrounding this included questions, and Mrs. Mehta was trying to locate the document sent to the attorney, but again, it was 9 documents. Mrs. Mehta shared that she copied me on emails from January 12th that she will be contacting the attorney or had contacted the attorney. Fact, there is no such email. I checked the email through the district site. Mrs. Mehta has not produced any such email. I do not recall any such email. There is no email. She does not, Mrs. Mehta shared that she does not recall if she spoke to the attorney. She can only locate the text talking about Robert Rules of Order. At the March 3rd retreat, Mrs. Mehta said, "I have not lied. You all need to have transparency, and then you can make up your own mind." I will leave it at that. New topic. A claim made by Mrs. Mehta in her Facebook post to the community, and then again read aloud on March 10th. If Mrs. Wright told me that I was doing anything wrong, anything inappropriate on the early start committee, I would have reversed course immediately. Thankfully, she assured me that I was doing nothing wrong. For those of you that are not sure, we held a late start committee. This was to look at the timings of the schools. You might have noticed that we did pass a motion to approve moving all the elementaries at the same time, the high school moving up 10 minutes. That's what we were able to accomplish. So that's what this is referencing to. To this claim, Mrs. Mehta informed the board on March 10th that she was simply responding to a direct question from me, and that is why she spoke about the reduction in instructional time. So there was a letter I had sent that talked about Mrs. Mehta continued use of reducing instructional time as a means to bring about a later start time for the high school. That was the discussion. Mrs. Mehta was reminded at the last executive session that the question that was posed to her with the fact that she shared that she was going to be on a task force of sorts. So what happened is during the 3rd meeting of the committee, we were discussing all kinds of topics, and Mrs. Mehta had previously shared, I know at least with Jen and myself, that she was part of a state committee. I'm not sure, has that state committee met, Mrs. Mehta?
Yes.
It has met. So I asked her to share what that was about. So in the process of doing that, she then turned the conversation over for the 3rd time in 3 meetings to discuss reducing instructional time. However, we must look at the entirety of all of this and what Mrs. Mehta was told by the attorney. Again, the claim made by Mrs. Mehta, if Mrs. Wright told me that I was doing anything inappropriate on the Early Start Committee, I would have reversed course immediately. Thankfully, she assured me that I was doing nothing wrong. Mrs. Wright shared the following with Mrs. Mehta. Based on the information she, Mrs. Mehta, provided, I advised that I did not see any ethics violation. However, I generally discussed with her the need to be careful when discussing certain issues in public or around staff members. I explained to her the impact of sharing information related to negotiations with the association and public, and the harm that could cause. On January 13th, after reading the emails between Mrs. Mehta and Mr. Fetter, I spoke again with Mrs. Mehta. I confirmed that her version of the above discussed meeting was different from mine, and that based on her version, she was telling me that took place, I did not see any reason for concern. However, I also did advise her that if the events had played out as Mr. Fetter described, I would be concerned. Change. March 10th, in executive session, Mrs. Mehta shared with the board, with Mrs. Wright in attendance, that she had not spoken to Mrs. Wright the week leading up to the retreat, and specifically not on March 3rd, the night of the retreat. Again, on March 10th, we held an executive session prior to being here. If you were here, you remember I had to keep coming out, and the meeting kept being delayed as the executive session was running long. So on March 10th, Mrs. Mehta shared with the board that she had not spoken to Mrs. Wright the week. That's the weeks, it would be February 28th through March 3rd. Mrs. Wright's, the night of the retreat. Here is Mrs. Wright's response to a direct question as to whether she both heard Mrs. Mehta make that claim as well as whether her claim was truthful. Mrs. Wright's response. My recollection is that in executive session on March 10th, Mrs. Mehta at first stated she had not spoken to me the prior week, February 28th through March 4th, and then stated that she may have spoken to me the day after the board meeting, March 4th. Excuse me. She stated she had not spoken to me on the day of the meeting and did not speak with me prior to the meeting. She expressed she was certain we had not spoken, as she did not speak with me prior to the meeting and would not have done so after the meeting as it ended quite late. Mrs. Wright further replied, Mrs. Mehta called me in the afternoon on March 3rd. During our conversation, Mrs. Mehta asked about whether our legal invoices could be discussed in executive session. I advised that they could, as they were communications between legal counsel and the board. She expressed concern that the bills included her name in connection with the phone calls that we had. She expressed concern that she would be asked about these bills and our communications. During the board retreat on March 3rd, Mrs. Mehta claimed that the legal bill was inaccurate. If you watch the video, you will see the part where that happens. This serious claim was of great concern, and I immediately asked Mr. Pulowski to look into this matter, as this would be both an egregious matter and of great concern to me, the board, and the public. First off, both David and I fully disagree on this claim, but did follow up and requested the law firm to reply. I would like to remind the board that our direct contact is Mrs. Kerry Wright, sitting over here. Kerry is a sitting Board of Ed member herself and recent winner of Board Member of the Year in the state of New Jersey. Kerry, have you been a president? I don't actually know the answer to that.
Yes. Current president and served 2 prior years as president.
So, for those who can hear, current president and served 2 prior years as president. In other words, we have an exceptional and extremely knowledgeable attorney as it relates to school board operations. This is Kerry's reply to the claim that basically she falsified bills. Her statement is not true, and in all my years as a board attorney, I have never had a board president or client make such a statement. I stand by our invoices and each billing entry. If the invoice reflects that I spoke with Mrs. Mehta on a certain day and on a certain topic and for a certain length of time, I did so. I also review all the invoices that are sent to the district each month, personally. I review each entry and certify their accuracy in the submission of purchase orders to Mr. Pulowski. I regret that Mrs. Mehta has not been more forthcoming and honest with the board in this regard, and that it has called all into question our practices. Our invoices are accurate. While there are many other topics with the attorney, and that might come up in the course of the evening, I do want to share 2 pieces of information. As per the law firm, the only board member that the district has ever been billed for time with the attorney since the days of former Superintendent Jerry Jellig has been Joyce Mehta. And thus far, in the first 2 months as president, has held 13 independent phone calls, as well as charges for reading documents, researching questions posed by Mrs. Mehta, and attending meetings. For the months of February and thus far in March, not including preparation or attendance at tonight's meeting, the district has incurred an additional $2,000 in regard to the same. That's pretty much where my part is, but I want a few more words. We must, as school officials, act with integrity, honesty, transparency, and absolute willingness to accept accountability. None of us will be perfect, but we must hold true to these things. Since March 3rd, this board has done nothing but make attempts at getting to the bottom of the facts in relation to what has been told to the board, administration, and the public. This entire situation began with one false statement. And I'm saying false, it's not an opinion. It's already been stated by Mrs. Mehta that she made false statements at the March 3rd meeting. This entire situation began with one false statement and has mushroomed into a 2-week ordeal. Really feels like about 2 years. We owe this community honesty, transparency, and must be accountable for our actions, decisions, and certainly how we spend the taxpayer dollar. And I would expect that you would expect nothing less from each and every one of us. Tonight, I found myself in the unwanted and uncomfortable position of having to share all of the clear and comprehensive evidence of what has transpired since January 12th. We are not about any one person, and we must put the district at the forefront. This whole matter has caused our district, and most notably this board, to look completely and utterly dysfunctional. This is a first for me, and has never been the case in my 12 years as a superintendent prior. I want to be clear that when the board looks dysfunctional, it causes there to be serious concerns by the community about what is happening in the schools. After tonight, we must begin to heal and move forward doing the good work we had been doing up until recent months. The South Brunswick School District needs to maintain its stellar reputation, and we must resolve these matters and move on from this issue tonight. We must get back to the business of the school district, not stay mired in the business of the board. Thank you. Open floor. It's discussion.
Anybody?
I'd like an opportunity to respond.
Yep. So I have a couple questions. I actually had a couple questions, and they were responded to by Carrie. Thank you. One of the questions that I had was during the conversation that you had with President Mehta during the March 10th meeting, did you instruct her to leave the meeting? And Ms. Wright's response is no, I did not instruct Ms. Mehta to leave the meeting. After the board waived the privilege related to communications that I had with Ms. Mehta, Mrs. Mehta asked whether I would be able to stop the board from asking questions regarding these communications. I informed her I could not. Mrs. Mehta then asked me whether Mr. Fetter would ask questions concerning these communications if she left the meeting. I informed her that I did not know. Mrs. Mehta then told me that she would be leaving the meeting. Is President Mehta's walking out of the meeting on March 10th without a reason a violation of any policy or anything else? Response: generally speaking, there is no requirement that a board member be present during the entire meeting. The only attendance requirement relates to a board member being prohibited from missing 3 consecutive meetings, which would allow for removal. Next, did Mrs. Mehta ask you to draft a written response to any communication that she received from School Superintendent Scott Fetter? Response: no. Did Mrs. Mehta ever make any inquiry to you about legal advice necessary to conduct board meetings pursuant to Robert's Rules of Order? If so, yes. Response: yes. Did Mrs. Mehta ever make Did Mrs. Mehta ever make any inquiry to you about any legal advice she needed regarding the reorganization or reorg of the Board of Education? If so, what was the inquiry and response? Mrs. Wright's response is, I do not recall any inquiry or question about the reorg meeting. Mrs. Mehta discussed the reorganization with me. Nothing in that portion of the conversation stands out in my memory. And there was one more I had. Excuse me. The next question I had was, and I'm going to repeat what Mr. Fetter stated, but there's more to it. Joyce stated during the March 3rd retreat that the lawyer bills are inaccurate. How do you, Carrie, respond to this? Her response: her statement is not true. And in all my years as a board attorney, I have never had a board president or client make such a statement. I stand by our invoices and each billing entry. If the invoice reflects that I spoke with Mrs. Mehta on a certain day and on a certain topic and for a certain length of time, I did so. I also review all the invoices that are sent to the district each month personally. I review each entry and certify their accuracy in the submission of purchase orders to Mr. Pawlowski. I regret that Mrs. Mehta has not been more forthcoming and honest with the board in this regard, and that it has called into question our practices. Our invoices are accurate. So those were some of the questions that I had. I don't know if anybody else wants to respond.
We had a conversation around Robert's rule during the, there was a conversation during the retreat around Robert's rule. According to Ms. Wright, the conversation happened on January 27th, 2022. And the context of the discussion during the retreat was around the time frame of January 12th and 11th. So it was not 11th and 12th January as I understood in the context of the retreat, but the conversation with Ms. Wright, according to Ms. Wright, with President Madam Mehta, happened on January 22nd, 2022.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Raj. I'd just like an opportunity to respond to some of these allegations against me. There were definitely conversations with Mrs. Wright about Robert's rules. She sent me some information about Robert's rules that was specific to Board of Ed policy, because that wasn't something that I could find specific to Board Ed policy. I did actually share those Robert's rules with the board members that requested the Robert's rules, number one. Number two, in respect of the reorg, I actually have text messages between myself and Mrs. Wright about the reorg and a brief discussion about the reorg. I am not making any claims against Mrs. Wright at all for anything. I'm just saying that I have the text messages on the phone because I know that that was another point to try to attack me and discredit me, so I have the text messages. In respect of the $2,500 that Mr. Feder has raised, or the $2,000 that Mr. Feder has raised, I can honestly tell you that there were a number of discussions with Mrs. Wright in response to committees and negotiations. We were in a difficult situation because we did not have the negotiations committee formed, and Mr. Feder and I had been on the telephone many, many times and by email trying to work out how to do this and how to move forward. At that point, I had suggested a committee of the whole, and anyway, that's where the discussions began. Can we do anything with the committee of the whole, or can we break down the negotiations committees into smaller committees? So the breakdown of this $2,000 would definitely fall within those. And Mr. Feder has not, he has no, I don't think that he disputes anything about the committees or negotiations. My communications with Mrs. Wright, Mr. Feder was CC'd on all the communications. In respect of the 16 hours, herein again lies some sort of misunderstanding, because Mr. Feder has mentioned this evening about the ethics training, and it was 16 hours, and last year it was 5 hours. I just want to explain this to the members of the public here. There's absolutely nothing to hide. I'm fully open. But basically what had happened was that last year the ethics training was actually virtual. Because of COVID, it was virtual. Therefore, it wouldn't incur the kind of costs and the kind of hours that would go in it. It would be very, very different, because this year we had Mr. David Disler coming to the Board of Ed office to give us the ethics training. There are a number of other issues that a number of other points that Mr. Feder has made, which are which I don't agree with at all. But one thing that I am perfectly open about is my misunderstanding with Mrs. Wright about attorney-client privilege and about my name being on the bill. That is something that I really did not understand at all, and I did not understand fully any issues, how that worked, how the process worked, about the breakdown of the bill, etc., etc. When Mr. Feder says that I actually was questioning the bills, I just said that I do not have the accurate times. I did not make any logs of our messages and our phone calls. I did not make any logs of the time that we spent on any of those, and the time had come up into issue. So that's another another point that I would like to clarify. And as to the late task force committee, Mr. Feder and I have had numerous conversations about that. I actually was surprised that he released this video, and he didn't release the main video where all of this began, with the potential ethics letter with me, the reason why I had contacted Mrs. Wright in the first place, and that is in dispute in respect of time. But whatever else said and done, I am fully accountable for my actions. Rightly, wrongly, if I had, I had mentioned about time at state level. Radner, Mr. Feder actually asked me this question at the last board meeting. Well, which school district actually started late and ended earlier? And I couldn't recall at the top of my head, and I'm sorry, Mr. Feder, for not being able to recall information at the click of a button, but I'm no spring chicken anymore, and it takes me time to remember. I did not remember. This is not anything to do with my credibility, but I looked at my notes about, school districts that have started later, whatever, and did not end that much later. So I just wanted to give you that information that Radnor was one of the school districts, started about 50 minutes later, but ended about 35 minutes later at the end of the day. So it wasn't a straight 50 minutes. And that was the point that I was referring to, that there were school districts that were in this situation. These points and everything that Mr. Feder has said, as Mr. Feder has told all of you here today, okay, there are no ethical charges against me. I have not been accused of any ethical violations at all. Mr. Feder has confirmed that I'm perfectly entitled to contact the board attorney, okay? The fact that the previous president did not contact the board attorney for 2 years for any legal points or any ethical points is whatever. It's surprising to me, but I do know that in other board districts, the board president does frequently contact the board attorney, okay? It's much, much better for us to get legal guidance and clarification. I am brand new at this. I have never been a board president before. I am learning as I go along. And I felt that at every step of the way, it was important for us to get the guidance of Mrs. Wright, which she did do so very professionally and very efficiently. So I just wanted to make a couple of points there, and about not recalling the documents, trying to locate the document, etc., that total fiasco that happened at the retreat. I think that all of you need to know that while we were in executive session before the retreat, for whatever reason, and of course, the board can blame me for whatever reason, but it was highly aggressive. It turned into shouting and yelling. It was an awful, awful situation for a long time. My apologies right now to all of you that were sitting outside executive session and heard everything that went on in executive session, which, to be quite frank with you all, totally unnerved me, and I was not myself at all, mentally, physically, or emotionally as well, by the time that I came into the retreat. In the retreat, I had asked repeatedly, give me time to find these documents, give me time. I was put on the spot. What did you send? When did you send it? What time? Did you CC me? Didn't you CC me? Etc., etc. This kind of like, you've all watched the retreat video. I mean, this kind of harassment, it continued for some time. And I take ownership of the fact that when I make a mistake, I will say that I made a mistake, okay? And my transparency was an issue. And for that, to my board members, to all my respected board members, I totally apologize for that. My lack of understanding, and I totally apologize for that. I'd asked for the time to produce the documents, etc., etc. Later on, when I had confirmed what I had sent Mrs. Wright, I am very transparent, very open, and I said yes. It was the first communication, the first letter that Mr. Feder had sent to me, bringing up all these potential ethical charges, plus all the emails which followed where he based the first ethical letter on in respect of whatever else, everything else, right, about members who can join, who cannot join, all those other communications. The information that I had given Mrs. Wright was, number one, every single email. I understand in her professional capacity that she did advise me based on all the emails that she had read. If there were other information, if there was anything else that Mrs. Wright would have wanted, I know that, all my attorney friends, they do reach out and ask for that verification, ask for, confirmation, ask for any other documentation that they need before they gave the advice. I'm very thankful to Mrs. Wright for allowing me the opportunity to reach out to you. And not only that, right, but for the advice that you gave, and that you didn't feel that I was in any type of a violation. At the same time, I do take Mr. Feder's point about time and how it affects negotiations. I'm not adverse to learning and to be open to ideas. about that. But as I say, where this task force began, really, I mean, like, you know, we need to really rely upon evidence, right? We cannot rely upon hearsay or what somebody thought or what somebody heard and put it into context. But wherever I am at fault, I'm perfectly okay to say, listen, I'm at fault. And there have been miscommunications with myself and Mr. Feder. I don't know why such a misunderstanding happened. I really don't know. I don't know if it's, you know, my lack of English skills, you know, it's some things get lost in translation, or whatever the reason is, I don't know what the reason is. But there definitely 100% have been miscommunications, misunderstandings between myself and Mr. Feder. So I'd just like all of you to know here that
Madam President, you just, I appreciate your intentions of doing the right thing by taking legal opinion. You are perfectly entitled to it, as we all know from the policy. I appreciate it. From what we know, let me recapitulate. On the day of retreat, there were line items.
yes,
Line items that the only question asked was clarification on the line item, which, as your fellow board members,
yes,
we were entitled to.
yes,
You were evasive. You refused to answer that question,
Yes.
which is perfectly okay at that point in time. And then we get to know that you did not understand if you had the privilege to share the information with us. And there were a bunch of other things you said, which is, I don't understand it quite well at this point, I'm sorry.
it's okay.
But you are actually seeking legal advice, and our attorney advised you to, let me read from her advice. She says, Miss Wright, that is, I told her that she had done nothing wrong in communicating with legal counsel, as the board president is permitted to do so. I further advised her to, quotes, own it. Own it with regard to communicating with our office. To be truthful with the board and to advise the board that she had the right to speak with legal counsel on the topics discussed, right? I further recommend she contact NJSPA to seek their counsel in order to confirm my statement with regard to the board's president's right to speak with legal counsel. So, effectively, our attorney asked you, the advice of our attorney was to own it.
Yes.
There is no problem. I speak for myself, and from what I gather from the conversation in our, amongst ourselves as all the board members, none of us had any problem with the president reaching out to the attorney seeking clarification.
Yes.
But we are aware that we are entitled to our answers. And the attorney, as I see, is very clear on this, and she asked you to own it. My question is, you knew that you had to own it, and you sought to do the right thing by seeking legal counsel. But you did not own it, and you were very evasive. So my question to you is, what is the point of seeking legal counsel, spending taxpayers' money, if you don't mean to follow through on the advice?
Yes. Thank you,
Thank
Dr.
you.
Raj. Thank you. So basically, Mr. Nathanson.
Yeah, why?
Mr. Nathanson.
Yeah.
Mr. Nathanson, there's a question posed. Can you hold for 1 second?
Yeah.
Dr. Raj, thank you for that question, okay? And it's a very important question, and I do take your point about that question. I did, yes. I do not have the notes for when I spoke to Mrs. Wright, but she did say own it. I remember that quite clearly, okay? I do not have any excuse or whatever. When I went into the executive session, Okay, I do not have any excuse. I totally admit that I was mistaken, and I do not remember why, but then, you know, it's my fault, and I take responsibility for that totally, and I apologize to all of you for any trouble that I caused you in that process. Having said that, I wish that, you know, the retreat itself and the executive session prior to that, I do wish that it had been more, you know, more cordial, if I can say, more cordial. Unfortunately, through circumstances beyond my control, it escalated into a full, you know, I don't know, a very, very aggressive, very hostile, and a very, very terrible situation at every level. So I just wanted you to know that that is something that I do take point on, and I do apologize. Again, I take full responsibility for that, and I apologize.
I just want to be able to reply. On the March 3rd conversation with Mrs. Wright, you expressed concern that the bills included your name, and you were concerned that you would be questioned on this. 2 weeks later, after complete chaos in this district, you're now saying that you're sorry. I get that. But during your presentation, you actually shared multiple factors as to why you didn't answer the questions. One of the factors was you were unaware that you had to answer the questions. You were unaware that it was your responsibility to speak to the board honestly. You were unaware that was your charge, to speak honestly to your board member colleagues. That was, you said that. The second part, you also shared that you were confused about what might have happened on the day in question, January 12th. Yet, you've been very clear that you knew exactly at that moment what happened on January 12th. Which is it? Sorry, it is a question. It's called which is it, is the question.
First of all, please, Mr. Feder, don't reach out to, you know, members of the audience, right? I'm really grateful to every single one of you for being here. So let's not have this dialogue with members of the audience,
Sure.
okay?
Which is it?
So on March 12th,
March 3rd.
what about March 3rd?
Okay, I'm good.
Mr.
I'll let that
Nathanson,
stand.
would you like to ask your question to me?
Well,
He said he's good. Mr. Feder
There's
said
not
he's
going to be
good.
an answer.
okay, so I have a
Wait.
couple of comments and some questions too. So, first of all, you called out this board that we weren't cordial. We were completely cordial, Mrs. Matter. The problem is that you weren't answering any of the questions that were posed to you in executive. So, and you were actually making up things as you went along. And in fact, when we came back out, you changed those answers and said something completely different. That's the first point. Second point is, since you brought it up, and you know, it reflects me as the immediate past president. The reason I chose not to contact the lawyer is because I would speak to the superintendent, ask the superintendent the question, and he contacted the lawyer and got me the answer. And if you speak to your other president colleagues, that is usually the preferred practice. What happens? Also, just for clarification, and you can tell everybody, for the last few years, you've attended at your own cost a forum called the School Law Forum, either in the spring or the fall. And that forum is conducted for actual education attorneys. You've asked us to pay for it, and you chose to pay for it yourself, so you can go. And some of the major topics of it is called legal crisis management, school ethics, and part of those courses is you talk about billing and such. So for you to sit here and say you don't know how to read a bill or you don't know how to understand the bill, that is not totally correct. And you knew enough, again, what Mrs. Rogers brought up, you knew enough in, I believe it was the retreat of 2020, that you questioned legal bills at that point and wanted to see the legal bills on a continued basis. So you understood it then, but for some reason you don't understand it now. Just
Mr.
wanted to make
Nathanson,
those
thank you
points.
so much for those questions. I really do appreciate this, especially when it comes down to legal bills. Everybody that's sitting here in this audience, right, is extremely intelligent and educated. Every single person that's sitting here. Anybody who picks up a legal bill, yes, you can all read a legal bill, okay? That is not in dispute. Okay, in terms of the school law forum, Mr. Nathanson, you know full well that I asked you whether I could be whether our school district could pay for the school law forum
paid for it yourself.
with the budget of $165 million
And you
to
paid
pay
for
for
it
it.
yourself.
Wait,
And you paid for it yourself, and you went.
Mr. Nathanson, I was not even working at that time. Unfortunately, whatever reason, I really don't have an issue with it. But at that time, I was told no. And that is the reason why I paid for that school law forum
I'm
by
not
myself.
questioning
And
the
the
money.
next point, Mr. Nathanson, please be respectful to me, like I have been respectful to you for many years, is that billing was not a part of that school law forum, and you can find out exactly what was covered in that. I have not undertaken any courses about official billing. I am not an expert in this field. I am not an expert in school law here at all. Like Mr. Feder did confirm, thank you, Mr. Feder, that I have not practiced. Okay, I practice. I'm a criminal solicitor from London. That is where I qualified. That is where I practiced. I do not do, I have never practiced here in school law. So for all of those reasons, Mr. Nathanson, and you have to forgive me that I wasn't actually attacking you in any way whatsoever about saying that you have not contacted the school board attorney. All I was saying was that in other districts, the president usually does contact the board attorney to seek legal guidance, okay, legal and ethical guidance. For me, as a brand new president, I wanted to do the right thing and I wanted the right advice, and that is the reason why I contacted Mrs. Wright. So that is the reason why. It was not, not in any way to attack you for your character or anything like that. That is what you decided to do. You decided to go through Mr. Feder, which is your call. That's your prerogative. That's not me, and I'm a different person.
Okay. So
Okay.
I wanted. So am I allowed to ask Mrs. Wright a question?
Yes.
Okay.
Please do.
Mrs. Wright, since it was brought up about the day that David, your partner, was here to do the ethics training, can you explain? So he was here for the actual ethics training, correct? And then the reason for the extension of the bill, for why the bill was a lot larger than the year prior. Can you explain what happened that evening?
Yeah, probably.
There are a few reasons for that. As you know, we block bill our time, so it's not broken out into each specific individual entry, but one large entry for each day. On that day, Mr. Disler had a conversation with Scott Fetter, so that was included in that time. He attended the ethics presentation in person here, and he was asked to remain for the entirety of the meeting, including what I was told from Mr. Disler was a somewhat lengthy executive session after your meeting. So he was here physically in your building for quite a long time, which was much longer than the time for the ethics training the year before, when it was a Zoom meeting you log into, you log out, and you're done. In addition, it took a little bit longer this year to prepare because the various conversations with Ms. Mehta and with Mr. Fetter about some of the issues that were going on with the board required tailoring of the ethics presentation, as we do every year. But sometimes it takes a little bit longer to tailor it to the specific needs of what's going on with the board and the district. So that's why the bill this year was larger than last year.
And who asked them to stay later?
I believe Ms. Mehta.
Okay, thank you.
Yes,
Thank
I
you.
did.
That's it.
And I did that, Mr. Nathanson, just to be clear, and not for you to question my intention and my integrity in asking Mr. Disler to stay, is because this board, we actually have no connection whatsoever with our board attorney and our relationship, right, with the board attorney. We see our board attorney once at the ethics training, once a year. And actually, Mr. Feder and I had been in conversation, and we had decided that Mr. Disler would come at the end of our board meeting so that we could go straight into executive session. And the reason for that was because Mr. Feder and I were both mindful about cost. Okay, but it was very important for me to maybe, change things, right? For the board members to know who their board attorney is, for them to know what role that they have, for the board members to be able to, to contact the board attorney through either Mr. Feder, Mr. Pawlowski, or myself for any legal or ethical issues. So yes, there's a change this year, okay? There's a change this year, and that was the decision that, I had, consulted with Mr. Feder, and that he agreed that we could ask the board attorney to stay for that purpose.
So, Carrie, since the president just misspoke, the reason why she asked your colleague to stay, did he communicate why he was asked to stay to you?
Did he communicate with me?
Yeah. Do you have knowledge of why he stayed, why he was asked to stay?
So I did speak with him about Ms. Mehta's request that he stay for the executive session.
Right.
And that request also came through Mr. Pawlowski as well, that Ms. Mehta had requested that Mr. Disler stay for the meeting. So Mr. Pawlowski sent David and myself an email letting us know that she had requested.
Was there a reason behind it?
I do not recall the reason specifically.
Okay. Mr. Feder,
Thank you.
Mr. Feder, you know.
I think the question's been asked and answered.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Feder. Mr. Keener.
Thank you. Ms. Mehta, at some time tonight and earlier, you indicated you were going to send us the text messages that you had. You referred to them again tonight. Is there a reason we haven't received them up at this point?
Mr. Keener, with due respect to you, sir, in executive session, I mentioned the text message
No,
for
you
the
just mentioned them
reorg.
here on the dais.
Wait, let me reply, sir. I mentioned the text message with the reorg. I told you specifically in the executive session that I have, I have a lot of information. I have dates, etc., etc. I have the text message. If anybody wishes to see the text message, I have a copy here, and I'm open to that.
So you had said that at the retreat we would get them. Is there a reason we haven't? Do I have to ask in a different way?
There's no reason except that this had actually come up in Mr. Feder's letter to the board dated the 13th of March, and I just felt that it was, I just felt that I should take a copy and bring it with me
So
today.
then can I'll be more specific. If you would, by noon tomorrow, could you forward all of those copies of the text messages to everyone sitting at this dais?
Yes.
Thank you.
Did you want it, all the text messages?
Yes,
or
I
just
think
the
that would be
reorg?
helpful.
Because that was the reorg piece
No,
was
the
in this.
text messages,
Yes.
all of them.
Yes,
would
I
be
will.
great. Also, you had said you were going to release a timeline of things and promised this board a timeline letter. We have yet to receive that. Do you know when we will receive that?
Mr. Keener, I do apologize. I do not remember about the timeline letter, but it's not a problem at all. Please send me an email tomorrow with the specifics of what you need, and I'm happy to create a
You
timeline.
had said it at the retreat that you were going to send us all a copy of the timelines of events. So that's the
I
letter I would like
apologize.
to
I
see.
apologize.
If you would, please get us that by noon tomorrow as well.
Just email me, Mr. Feder, exactly what you want, and I'm happy to give you the information.
I don't know why I have to email. I'm asking you in person right now.
Well,
If you
because
would,
I don't
please.
want to send you a different information than what you're requesting. It's just for clarification, Mr. Keenan. I'd appreciate it. Thank you. Okay. Anybody else?
The other thing is.
Yes.
You keep saying that you don't know about transparency and privileged conversations. I'm looking at an email from February 20th of 2020, almost over 2 years ago. And it was from you to the current board at that time. And I'll read most of it. Dear esteemed board members, further to our retreat, I had promised to research further about legal updates offered by many school districts, attorneys, and to inform you. This is my summary. NJ SBA Legal confirmed that the board attorney represents the board. Many New Jersey BOE members request the right to fully be informed about legal costs, breakdowns, and legal issues to be able to make fully informed decisions. This is especially important when exercising due diligence and voting on key issues listed on the consent agenda. Please see 1.21 on your agenda dated 1/21/20 as one such example. By asking an attorney for periodical updates, keeps the board law firm accountable, increases transparency, and can help to reduce critical costs. Many districts are offered these updates during executive sessions. At times, an initial is to be described as plaintiff defendant or a school board member, or it can be redacted completely. Number 5, the attorney-client privilege is not compromised. And it goes on to say different things about other things. So back in 2020, you did research on legal invoices. You did research about critical items that the board should be aware of. You did research about attorney-client privileges back in 2020, but yet you can't recall them now. And this is your memo that you did the research for your other board members. I don't quite understand.
Thank you, Mr. Keener, for that question. So you're absolutely correct. To be honest with you, this was a real concern for me in 2020. The reason being, because as a school district, right, especially for you, Mr. Keener, being on the budget committee, okay, we had never received case updates and the cost of those cases, right? How much is it costing the district, right, when we fight those cases? So that is the letter that I had written. That was my concern about cost. how many cases, how many people are suing us. As you know, right, we have two separate firms right now representing us, Porzio and Comegno, and basically they do different types of work. So Comegno deals with special ed cases. So these were genuine concerns for me as a board member to say, listen, we have two different firms. That was another question. Can we, is there a possibility of, like, say, Porzio, would they be willing to do the special ed work? The reason why I'm asking that, I just think that is best for consistency, for communication, and for everything to be kept in-house at one firm. So yes, that was my concern at that time, legal costs. We had no idea about how many cases, but thankfully Mr. Feder at the last retreat, he did read out a few things and to give us that information that we needed. That was the first time that had happened, and that was my concern then. But as I have stated, again, Mr. Keener, I'm letting you know, as I stated in executive session, I have never ever seen a legal bill for this type of work ever. Okay, I have never seen it, and I was not aware of the process. I was not aware of the breakdown. That was the first time. It's a learning process for me. So I allow you to give me that courtesy to learn and to grow as I'm going along. There is nothing to do with transparency or credibility. These are concerns that I had. These are concerns that I will have, and I will always voice my opinion.
Thank you. That's great. So, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Mr.
I appreciate
Krishna?
your answer. The other thing I have
Oh, sorry, Mr. Keener, I didn't realize.
is
Yes.
in executive session prior to coming out here with your attorney present, we had asked you specific questions with regard to the bill that you did receive at 11:30 in the afternoon or in the morning, and you skirted around the issue and weren't transparent. I think what this board is asking, Ms. Mehta, and is really concerned about is you don't give a straight answer. You skirt around the issues. You don't come through transparent. You give us rhetoric. You don't give us a simple yes or no answer, and that concerns this board.
Thank you, Mr. Keener. Mr. Krishna.
Madam President, on the last board meeting, which was on the 10th of March, our lawyer, Ms. Carey, was up for a questioning. However, that time there was adjournment, and after that you left the board meeting. Although it is not important, or it is not said anyway that a board member needs to stay throughout the meeting. However, being it such an important meeting and the topic that was getting discussed, and at the time the board attorney was up on the podium, you decided to leave the meeting. Can we know what was the reason for that, and was it really essential to leave at that crucial moment?
Thank you, Mr. Krishna. Thank you so very much. So I need to be perfectly candid with you, and I apologize for what I'm about to say, but I need to be perfectly honest with you. So before we had entered the board meeting, the board members and I, well, all of us together had discussed a course of action. We came into the board meeting and things were moving well. They were moving very, very well. Unfortunately, around 9:30 p.m. of that, at that time, Mr. Feder and I we had a conversation, okay? And the nature of that conversation was Mr. Feder gave me 3 options, 3 ultimatums, okay? The first ultimatum was that I stay and Mrs. Wright would take the stand, and basically he said, it's going to be pretty ugly and your credibility is going to be ripped to shreds. This was my first option, that she comes there, Mrs. Wright comes there, Mrs. Wright comes to the dais, and he said, this is your first option that Mrs. Wright can get, is going to be very ugly. The second option he had given me is that Mr. Feder decided to write an apology letter on my behalf, a statement, which he sent to me, which I have a copy of, to basically say that everything I had written on Facebook was a complete lie. He wanted me to get up on the dais and say that everything that I said was a complete lie, which he agrees. The third option was, or he said, listen, we can avoid all of this right now. You send an email to all the board members telling them that you are going to step down immediately, and and this can, and we don't have to go through this. I begged Mr. Feder. I begged him. At that time, I was very upset, right? I did not want any more shame or disrepute to come to the board, to myself, to the district. I did not want that at all. And so what I decided to do was to go and consult with our board attorney outside. And I frankly told her the discussion that we had with Mr. Oh, and by the way, and when Mr. Feder and I spoke about this, I asked him for time. I said to him, look, can we come to the table? Can we discuss? And everything. That was not an option. I also asked him about Mike Mitchell, because Mike Mitchell is the VP, okay? And I said, look, would you consider Mike Mitchell, right? Being, in this role. That wasn't an option. Unfortunately, he said that the board members would not, they would not be in favor of Mike Mitchell being president. So what happened was I left the meeting. I had a discussion with Mrs. Wright. I told her the discussion between myself and Mr. Feder. And unfortunately, Mrs. Wright couldn't advise. She couldn't help in that situation. It was myself. I suggested to Mrs. Wright, if I had stayed, it would have been 1,000 times worse for everyone, for the district. So I suggested to Ms. Wright that, it might be the best course of action that I leave at that time. And it was around 10 o'clock. Mrs. Wright, agreed. And I asked Mr. Mitchell to please take over the meeting, and I left that meeting. A lot of decisions are made. In hindsight, it looks different. I feel that it was the right decision to be made at that time. I did not want any further embarrassment to anybody. To be very honest with you, as you can all see here right now, this is a complete fiasco, right? This is a complete circus, right? Right? This is a Board of Ed. This is a Board of Education meeting. This is a Board of Education meeting, and as you can see, in effect, it's a trial, right? I'm here, right? It's a trial, right? But unfortunately for me, I am in a very, very difficult situation. My credibility, my reputation, everything is up. Is being attacked at every level, and unfortunately, I don't have all of the due process rights that I would in a trial. I do not have the right to have legal representation. I do not have the right of having evidence in advance. I do not have the right to cross-examine anybody. I do not have the right to bring evidence or to bring testimony from witnesses, because the Board of Ed meeting is not set up for these purposes. This is not why we should be here for doing this. Could there have been a better way to resolve these problems internally? I deeply respect all of my board members. They are amazing, amazing people, every single one of them. That would have been the solution. Mrs. Karthik.
Well, can I respond to that, Deepa, before?
Yes.
Would that be okay if I respond?
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you. So,
Pardon?
Deep, it's up to you. Is it okay if I? Thank you.
Joyce, can you please speak to the board?
I am. Please,
Okay, it's
Mrs.
quiet.
Rogers,
It's-
please be respectful
Lisa,
to
it's
me.
quiet. Lisa,
Please
it's
be
quiet.
respectful
Lisa,
to me.
Lisa, it's quiet.
Okay.
Lisa, it's quiet.
Okay. So let's move on. Let's order, sir. Order, sir. Order, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, please.
Order.
Let's keep a level of decorum, just please. Wow, we will. Yes, we will. Let's please keep a level of decorum. We have a lot going on, and we just want to make sure we get through this and
Thank you,
save
Mr.
some face.
Pulaski.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pulaski. Mr. Feder, please.
Thank you. So, as is seen on the video from the other night, I absolutely did come to you and say that I have to do something right now I do not want to do, which is the words I told you. I have to ask the lawyer questions in regard to what you wrote to the community and what you had said at the meetings. I actually said to you, I have to tell the truth. And in the course of me saying I had to tell the truth, I absolutely wanted to not have to do even what we did tonight. This would have been great to have not had to be in this situation. I think we'd all agree with that. I have to agree with you that this is not the work of the board. The work of the board since January 6th has been the board, and solely the board. I don't think the district has done much more than just, not the district has, but the board hasn't. We've done the board. So yes, the idea when you posed your offer, let's be really clear, your offer was, I will step down if I make Mike Mitchell president. I said, number one, as a superintendent, I have no ability whatsoever, no right, no authority to make anybody president. You said, Scott, if you tell them, they'll listen to you. That's what you thought. So
I was.
at the, well, I didn't,
Sorry,
I
I'm sorry,
didn't cut you
Mr.
off.
Feder.
That's okay.
I'm sorry.
So at the end of the day, the idea behind all of this is this board needs to move forward one way or the other. You had said in the executive session, and then again here, you wanted time to consider the concept of your stepping down as board president. You asked again for more time. If anyone was in the audience at the time, you saw me go around to the board and ask that exact question for you. For you. So I did. I then gave you time. You said you wanted to rewrite a draft. I did tell you. The draft I had written was truthful. You said, yes, you want time. I said, okay, I'll go do the budget presentation. Those of you that were in the audience here know that's exactly what happened. I went, I did the budget presentation. At the end, you had left. Nothing about that I've just stated is incorrect or in any way wrong.
Mr. Feder, with due respect to you, sir, right, the apology that you had written for me, that I had completely lied about everything and everything that I have ever written, to be honest, sir, that is completely inaccurate, and that was never something that I would say or do in a million years, no matter how much pressure or how much bullying or harassment you give to me.
Ladies and gentlemen, we will not entertain comments. Ladies and gentlemen, please. Excuse me, sir.
To join, this is a public meeting, please.
There will be time for public comment for registered speakers.
Thank you.
There'll be time for public comment when we have registered speakers. Please hold your comments for those times. Thank you.
Tifa has a question.
Guys, come on.
Excuse me, sir, please. I'm asking you.
Can you please?
Ladies and gentlemen,
Please
at
sit
this
down.
point in time,
Please sit down. Please sit down. Please sit
I
down.
will have, at this time,
Sit down.
if you're interrupting a public meeting, if you're interrupting a public meeting, we will ask you to leave. If you do not leave, we will escort you out. So please, do not interrupt the public meeting. Thank you.
I apologize for what I'm about to say. I really do apologize. Please, can we have just a 5-minute recess? I need to use the restroom. I'm so sorry. Can I just, I'll be back in 5 minutes.
That's fine. She can take the recess.
needs
Thank
to
you,
make a
thank you.
motion.
Can I have a motion for an adjournment, just for like a recess for 5 minutes, please? Can I have a motion?
You got a movement here by Mr.
Mr. Nathanson, can I have a second, please? Mrs. Karthik, any nays, any abstentions, any discussion? Motion carries. Motion to reconvene, can I have a motion, please? Thank you, Mrs. Rogers. Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. Any nays, any abstentions, discussion? Motion carries. Thank you very much for allowing me that short recess. I'm so sorry about that, but thank you so much for allowing that. So moving on now, and can I have a motion to go into public comment?
Yeah.
Deepa hasn't returned.
Okay. Should we? Oh, okay. Okay. Mrs. Rogers, we really need to move on. We really need to move on.
Deepa's just about
The
ready.
Board of Education recognizes the value of public comment on educational...
President, Deepa's
Yes.
coming
Oh,
in
thank
now.
you. Thank you
As is
so much,
Smith.
Mr. Keener. Thank
As is
you.
Smith.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Gail. Thank you, Dr. Raj. Thank you, Mrs. Karthik. Mrs. Karthik, I understand you have a question.
Yes. My question is regarding your Facebook post, which we had spoken extensively about. You had stated that during our executive session on 310, you had stated that you had basically read that statement out to Ms. Kerry Wright, who had reviewed and approved the Facebook post. And you also stated that she had clearly told you that this was not a violation of our district policy 0169.02 as it relates to the board member use of social media. Is this correct?
Due respect to you, we had discussed this in executive session. I had repeated exactly what I had spoken with Mrs. Wright. She did confirm the same. The policy number and things like that, no. And I did say this in executive session, so I just find myself repeating myself. Mrs. Wright also confirmed that I had read it out to her and that she knew, and I explained to her the reasons why I needed to place the Facebook post. And you also heard from my board attorney as well that he also had reviewed it and approved it. Thereafter, I had posted it on Facebook.
Ms. Wright, did you approve this Facebook post and did you confirm that it was not violating our district policy?
So as I indicated to the board in executive session and to Ms. Mehta, I listened to Ms. Mehta read me the Facebook post she said she was going to post on Facebook. I listened to her. I asked her to repeat certain sections. I did point out to her several areas that I had some concerns. I did not in any way approve the Facebook post. I did not in any way encourage her to post it. And I did not review the board's policy with respect to your social media, which she knew because I was on the telephone with her when I had the complete discussion.
Mrs. Wright, can I just ask a question? Do you remember my asking you if I should send that to you by email, ma'am?
Yes, you did.
Thank you, ma'am.
And you also indicated that you did not want me to bill for any of our communications. So I did not want you to send me anything.
With due respect to you, I really have to stop this at this point. With due respect, the bill about the Facebook post, absolutely there was no discussion about the bill for the Facebook post. And now, I mean, like, that is not even in dispute about the bill, about the Facebook post.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but Ms. Wright, so what I'm hearing you say is that you did not approve that post, and you're saying that you did not say that this does not violate our social media policy. Is that correct?
That's correct. It is not my role to approve Facebook posts or any public statements that board members make.
Okay. All right. My second question to Madam President is, when you left the March 10th meeting midway, I had asked you, why did you leave the meeting? And if you had consulted, which you did, which you had consulted Ms. Wright before leaving the meeting.
Yes.
And you had stated that she advised you that under the circumstances, it would be best for you to leave. So my question is actually to Ms. Wright. Is this accurate?
What you just recited is not correct. I had a conversation with Ms. Mehta about the business of the board meeting, about her concerns with the questions. I was standing right here, and I was ready to answer the questions that the board had for me after waiving the privilege. My ethical responsibility is to answer those questions to you accurately and honestly. She asked me if I thought that that would stop. I told her I did not think so, as I was standing at the podium, and I thought that the questioning would continue since the board had waived the privilege. She then told me that she was leaving. It was not a question, or at least I did not perceive it to be a question, and I didn't answer that. She said she was leaving the meeting. And I told her that if that's what she felt she needed to do, that it was her decision. I didn't encourage it in any way.
My third question is to Madam President. During our March 3rd executive session, Madam President, the question about the documents that you had shared with our attorney came into play. When you were unable to answer that question directly, we afforded you an opportunity at the board, and I'm not taking specific names here. The board afforded you the opportunity to review your emails to see if you could refresh your memory about the emails that were shared with the attorney, because there was a direct invoice line item, a bill that we were looking at. And you were on your phone, and I was sitting next to you. When you were reviewing your phone and your laptop, both of it, did you find any emails from January 12th sent to the attorney?
Thank you, Mrs. Karthik, for that question. So, when I was looking for those emails at the retreat, okay, on this Chromebook, okay, I did not find the emails that for January. But afterwards, when I had the time to actually do it at home and to do the searches and everything, I did find the emails that I had sent to Mrs. Wright. So there were about 9 documents.
So for the public, I would like to read the response from you, Ms. Wright. Right? On January 12th, 2022, did Mrs. Mehta send you any communication? If so, how many different communications, including email and text? Your response is, Mrs. Mehta sent me 9 emails on January 12th and several text messages. The text message provided her personal email address and requested that I watch the board's reorganization meeting online.
That's correct.
So what we're talking about here is, just so that I understand, that there were 9 emails sent on that particular day. Not 1, not 2, 9 emails that were sent, and we were unable to find a single email.
Mrs. Karthik, with due respect to you, I asked for time. I did find them all when I got home, and I have confirmed to you that, the emails that were sent, and they were all, I know it sounds like they're separate emails, but they were all part and parcel of the initial ethical letter. They were part of that communication, and that's why.
Madam President, with due respect to you, I find it extremely surprising that we could not find 9 emails, not 1, not 2, 9 emails on January 12th, either on the phone or on the Chromebook, that we are all seeing here. We all use it, and you had, I believe, a different kind of a Chromebook that you were using that day. But I find it extremely surprising that we couldn't find even a single one.
Yes, Mrs. Karthik.
And I'm sure that a lot of members of our community would find it surprising.
Yes,
as well.
you would find it because I know of your exceptional tech skills, and I mean that as a compliment, and a lot of the other board members here, and people who know me, unfortunately, will know my lack of tech skills. That was on my fault there. I couldn't find it. My phone itself, it didn't have the school board's email on there, whatever, storage, whatever, it didn't have it, but I did find it later on, and I thank you for your question.
When you found those emails, what did you do after you found those emails?
What did you want me to do, Mr. Keener, with the emails?
Did you send them out to anyone?
I didn't know that was a request, but I'm very, very happy, sir, to send you those emails tomorrow.
No, we've all gotten them. We've
Okay,
received them.
thank you for your
But not
question.
from you.
Oh, well, that's okay, thank you. I'm glad you got the information. Okay, any other questions? To my right, to my left? Okay, seeing none, we're going to move.
Not at this time. Ma'am, please, we're going to have to ask you to leave if you can't, I'm sorry. At this time, public comment.
The Board of Education recognizes the value of public comment on educational issues and the importance of allowing members of the public to express themselves on school matters of community interest. Complete copies of the rules that govern this portion of the meeting are available to the public at the back of the room, or you can obtain an advance copy by contacting the board office during regular business hours. We reserve the right to limit each speaker to no more than 3 minutes. It is our plan to listen to each member of the public. We will note all questions and comments made. Once all questions and comments made from all members of the public are made, the Board of Education will respond, if necessary, to questions and comments in the most timely and efficient manner available. Please consider not repeating comments and questions made by other members of the public. I ask that you state your name, place of residence, or your group affiliation. Mr. Plowski, do we have any registered speakers, please?
Yes, we do, and if I may, for the public, please understand, we have a three minutes. We have 25 people that want to speak tonight, so we're going to be here for 75 minutes listening to public comment. So I'm going to ask you, I'm going to set my timer for 2 minutes and 45 seconds. When you hear the timer, that gives you the idea of, hey, it's time for me to wrap up. I got 15 seconds and I'm getting off the podium. We're going to keep it to 3 minutes per person because of the number of people we have. I'm also going to ask people to please understand to not repeat the same comments that others have repeated. I know everybody wants to get up and say their piece, but if somebody said it for you, pat yourself on the back and think to yourself, hey, that guy had the same idea, or that woman had the same idea I had, therefore I don't have to get up and stand in front of the public and say the same thing. So please just be cognizant of the amount of time that we're going to spend on this. And our first speaker for this evening, if you're registered to speak with us, if you're one of the 25 that registered to speak, if you could please move to that side of the auditorium so we don't have to do the uncomfortable wait for when I call your name and have to have you walk across to that other side. There's plenty of seats over here in the front row. And what I'll do is I'll start with our first speaker of the evening is Alat Patel. Is Alat Patel here? Our second speaker of the evening is going to be Debbie Bonacore. Yep. And I do need you to state your name, your residence, and nice and clear. And we'll get started. Is Alat Patel here? Okay, Debbie, you're up.
Good evening. I am Debbie Bonacore. I have resided in Kennel Park for 31 years, and I am a recently South Brunswick District retired teacher, taught here for 24 years. I have attended many board meetings, both in person and online, through the years. South Brunswick Board of Ed has always been a collaborative group, not always agreeing 100%, but always open, respectful, and honest. Honesty matters. In the past months, the lack of honest and open communication has been apparent to anyone who watches or attends the meetings. Because of unanswered questions by the board president, these meetings have stretched to 2 or 3 hours. And that's not counting the exec session when you meet behind closed doors. Way to waste our time. In addition, the board's attorney has had to attend meetings, several extra meetings, and I'm assuming she gets paid for those, and at her hourly rate. And she's here again tonight. Which brings me to my point. Joyce, in refusing to answer those questions way back when, or answering them honestly, you are costing us money. Not just time, but money. Time is money. You're wasting our money. Joyce, you hold the responsibility to guide the board, and your lack of honesty concerns me. Yes, you have the right to contact the board's lawyer, but what's the point if you're not going to listen to what she says? And the board's lawyer is contesting that what you said she said. This shows that you're dishonest. You've wasted the lawyer's time and expertise and our tax dollars. I'm sure there's many more important items for the board to discuss and on which to make decisions, but we can't get past these unanswered questions. We need to move on. And so again, I am asking the board president, Joyce, please step down and allow an experienced board member to lead. And if she does not, I continue to urge the board to pursue honesty, transparency, and the highest ethical standards possible in all matters. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have Alat Patel here? Our next speaker will be Maria Smarsh. Maria? Manoj Shardi?
Hi, I'm Manoj Chaudhary. I'm a resident of South Brunswick for past 22 years, and I have seen Mrs. Mehta work for betterment of school kids, and she has been contributed a lot. I have seen her grown from parent-teacher association there. She has done a lot of good things. She has contributed and understands the student stress and basically campaign for that one. And I really like her work, and I have seen her like doing all the work so far in with the integrity and with basically every time she does it with the ethics there. I really think that she can, in last so many years, I never heard anything like this. She has been, because she has been honest and she has been very good at her job. So I really wish her to continue her as the president of Board of Education here. And what I think that we should give her a fair chance to her hear her side and basically not just corner her in one direction. You know, we should definitely focus on the facts and not just do the decisions based upon the opinions. And it's not a good thing, like we compare some of the things like with the just last year we had this much budget and this year. Change is good sometimes, you know. So we should be open to the change. Change actually helps us to grow further, you know. So I think we should really hear her side, and we should support her for her changes that she's doing to the Board of Education. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have a Gaurav Tyagi.
Gaurav, David.
Gaurav.
Hi everyone, my name is Gaurav Tyagi and I'm a resident of Princeton Walk. I've lived in Princeton Walk since 2009 and I have 2 kids in the school system. Looking at the last few board meetings, I had to come into this stage. This is the first time coming to this stage. So the fact that those board meetings forced me to come here, you can imagine my anguish. And what I'm going to focus on right now is not what are the charges against somebody, or I'm pretty sure that the board can address that and resolve that in a fair fashion. What I'm going to address today is the fact that the way the meetings have been conducted. Actually, it was very extremely surprising to me. I was watching online on 3rd of March, and the way some of the board members behaved was actually atrocious. I couldn't believe what I was seeing, live streaming. In fact, I saw some board members being disrespectful to each other. And I also want to, specifically, I want to bring attention to the behavior of Ms. Rogers. I really wonder whether you know how you came across that day. And in case you don't remember, I'll refresh your memory. Please go back, when you get back home, the recording of 3-3, go to the 47th minute. I couldn't believe I was seeing that. What makes me shudder is, if this is the way you are behaving in public, what must be happening in the executive sessions inside? And it's not like I am new to volunteering. I've been on my HOA board for 9 years, and I'm currently the president. I've never behaved in this fashion with any of my board members or members of the audience. So while I am, thankful to you guys for devoting your time and being passionate about it, I request you to please maintain a sense of decorum and not come across to an unknown person. As I said, first time in 12 years, you are actually forcing me to come here because I couldn't stand it. I don't really care about the facts of the case. That's for you to figure out, and I trust the board is going to do the right thing. But you cannot treat a person in this fashion. The president... The precedent that you're setting is, what you're telling your board member is, next time if somebody makes, whatever it is, it's right to behave in that fashion. And the recording's out there for posterity. And to think that this is the board that I trust with anti-bullying measures in the school system? As you can see, I'm a little worked up about this because every time I think of that, I've got 15 seconds. So once again, volunteering is not an easy job. I've done that, and I know that you guys spend many, many more hours than I do. So thank you for your service, but please, my only ask is please maintain decorum and don't make it seem as if you are bullying somebody.
Thank you for your comments, sir.
Treat everyone with respect. Thank you.
Aaron Popolo.
I actually debated upon whether I was going to speak tonight or not, but I felt strongly that I need to based on the behavior.
Names, can I get your name?
I'm sorry,
and address,
Aaron
please?
Popolo, Kendall Park. I felt that I needed to speak based on the behavior of the administration and the board members. I've watched the past 2 meetings, the board retreat on March 3rd and on the March 10th meeting, and I am concerned about the actions and the behaviors of these communities that these community leaders are demonstrating. Our children are watching. Can you honestly say that you're proud of how you're treating each other? The yelling, the cursing, the banging on a desk, the negative, aggressive body language, it's quite frankly very disturbing. As a parent who has suffered the ultimate loss because of how people have bullied my daughter, we need to do better. All of us need to do better. This community has shown its worst side, not only in public meetings, but on social media platforms as well. Videotaping someone and posting it on social media without their permission would earn our students a HIB. And it is honestly what ultimately killed Mallory Grossman, a Rockaway teen who died by suicide at 12 years old. Some of this very administration board members have been victims of these types of behavior and bullying themselves in the past and have spoken out about it. And now it seems that these same people are now the offenders. Our children are suffering from a silent epidemic of a mental health crisis. And we are yelling and ridiculing each other at public meetings and on community forums. I'm embarrassed of this behavior coming from so-called adults. What happened to professionalism? What happened to kindness? What happened to our sense of community and caring for our neighbors? Where's the dignity? I am all for transparency and facing our errors and mistakes head on and taking responsibility for our actions when warranted. But there's no need for the unkind comments, the eye-rolling, yelling, and cursing. We need to change this behavior. Again, our children are watching. Your students are watching. My daughter made a decision to end her life because of some of the exact behaviors that you people are demonstrating in public meetings. So I am here to be an upstander because maybe if someone had spoken up for my daughter, she might still be alive. We wonder where our children are learning it from. Your community leaders, your role models. Please remember that there are families who are innocent bystanders who are being impacted by this.
Thank you for your comment, ma'am. Appreciate it.
I just hope that just be kind to each other.
Thank you.
You never really know what someone else is dealing with.
Is there a Umesh Mahan?
Hello, board members. This is Umesh Mahajan, resident of Princeton Courtside Estates. I've been resident in the town for the last 18 years or so. So I've been part of various board meetings, but I was very much part by the meeting which I saw on 3rd of March. And as I said, people, I watched it live. And the way I see that, there was a question for the board president, which was asked, and president evaded or didn't want to answer or mistook, whatever the reasons being. We don't want to get into that legality. I'm sure the board and the legal aspect of that, they will answer that. But my point is that conversation that lasted for initial 5 minutes, I understood the gist of it, what was going on, and that 5 minutes became 3-hour session. 1.5 hour, 2 hour session, and I saw the same thing, same question being repeated, and questions were asked in a different tone, in different manner, by different people, using the different subject, etc. But ultimately, the same one question which was being asked kept on going for this. I work in a corporate world. So I work in a corporate world, and where we have this kind of meetings, when I have meetings with my staff and people, these things are very important that we do not deviate. And specifically, I understand, I respect the board, where each and every member is very, very educated and very much capable of that. You will keep track of the public time and not go over where things are not really going to matter. And some of the things, basically, as a community, we teach our kids to be respectful, sincere, and be civilized in society. We need to follow the same decorum and process where we follow in the corporate world or at home. But here I saw a non-consequential, one-way, and I'm sorry to say, I felt it was one-way personal attack for 3 hours in a meeting. We are... So we are in a society where, as I think the previous person mentioned, bullying is not acceptable in our society, and we teach our kids exactly to follow that, and the same standard applies to adults as well. And then we all aware of that, but sometimes I feel bad when we do not follow that. I'm sure board has a huge workload in front of them, and I see really waste of public time in these meetings. I feel as a resident taxpayer, I feel bad about it. And I agree that, and actually in one of the previous meetings, I saw somebody mention that it became a circus. And I agreed with that member that it became circus. But what does it mean it became circus? Why? Because it became circus because people were shouting at each other, raising their voices, doing these kind of things. That's what made it circus, not the contents, but the way overall things were done. Regardless of the situation, how this happens tonight, I hope the community, as a community, we can learn and we can engage in a civilized society and in productive meetings. And I had to really appreciate today's meeting was much more productive in the sense that I did not see the other things. So I wish all the best to all the board members.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There a Snigdha Hakara? No? Eric Schlesinger?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Eric Schlesinger. I live in Monmouth Junction. I've heard a lot of this evening the term bullying. And I think there's a big difference between bullying and holding public members accountable of our governing body. I think everybody needs to take a step back and be careful in how they use that term, because as Ms. Popolo indicates, it has specific results. That being said, this is a policy board whose sole responsibility is to establish policy for our district to move forward to establish the thorough and efficient education of each pupil. I ask each board member sitting here to ask yourself if your presence on this board is furthering that mission or is it disrupting that mission? Take that matter into consideration and use that guidance. I'm not here to ask anybody to resign. I'm not here to attack anybody personally. I'm asking you to focus on what the board's mission is and how to move forward, because the past 3 months, it hasn't worked. And if you're part of the problem, then you need to be part of the solution. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Is there a Anupam Goradia?
Hello, I'm Anupam Goradia. I live in Woods at Princeton Walk. I have been a resident of the community for past 12 years. I work in the field of corporate governance, attend a board meeting almost every week. I myself have been on the board of the Princeton Walk Association for about 6 years. I'm currently a board member at the Institute of Internal Auditors. A lot has been said, so I will not repeat about what I saw was shocking as a resident of the past couple of meetings that I have seen the videos for. What I would like to urge all board members is go to our website, the Board of Education, and what is our motto? The first 3 letters is say, first we unify. And I don't think so any one of you demonstrated that in the past few meetings. What we have seen as a community, as a common resident of the community, without getting into the procedural matters or anything that your policy provides, and I'm not saying policies are not important, but what we have seen as a community is penalizing one individual who wants to question the way things have been done for many, many years, and I think that's really inappropriate. What you have demonstrated will disattitude many other future volunteers to come forward in elections and stand for elections. So you have really harmed the community with what you have done for the past couple of meetings. I think $2,500 bill, all that, and going through the superintendent, I'm sure the attorneys don't charge separately when the board members approaches them or if they go through the superintendent. So the fees are the same, so I don't think so that's such a matter. And communication errors, when the board member accept those errors, right? You need to consider all those aspects. But you are here to work as a unified body for the betterment of our students. And what you have done is not that in at least past 1 month or so. So my request to you is to think as what you are here for, not as a board member, but what would you do as the role that you have been assigned for, elected by the public to do the good for the residents of this community. Not here as a board member and to go by the rules and everything that, rules keep changing. There are ways, and to come and conform to the rules, there are ways to rectify if some mistakes have occurred. And I'm sure you all know how to deal with that. So please think what you can do for the community.
Thank you for your comment. So, R.T. Gupta.
Hello everyone, I am Aarti Gupta, resident of South Brunswick Township for almost 14 years. I lived on Wexford Drive. I moved to this township only because of the good schools. That was the sole purpose for me. And for last 14 years, it has been great experience. The whole system, school system worked great, and the Board of Education also did tremendously good job. There were many actions taken which were commendable, and we were proud of the resident of this township. I personally know Joyce for almost 10 years, and I literally campaigned for her. I went door to door and campaigned for her. But today after this meeting, I'm completely shook off. For me, president plays a very, very important role. They are the steer to the ship. And after today, I'm sad, I'm mad. At the board also, and also at the president, because that's not how it's supposed to work together. You guys are role model. Our kids, myself, I'm literally shaking because I've never imagined that this is how things happen here, right? So one thing which I didn't like, that when the president is keep on saying that it's a learning curve, it's a learning curve. You were here for 5 years now. It cannot be a learning curve. President, ignorance is not an excuse. So I may take some time, because what I'm trying to say, it was a shock to me. I completely support you. I want, at this point, the truth to be out. I'm not the judge. I'm not sure the community members are the judge, whether we can prove you are right or Ms. Feeder is right, what is happening. So if something can be done, ethics charges can be filed. We can figure it out concretely, whether she was fault or she was not at fault, because that board has to come together. There is a lot to be done in this town. It's early times, transportations, swimming pool. There are so many things. And for last 3 months, we are discussing this. This is not acceptable by any means. So whatever it takes to move forward, whether it's ethics charges, whether the board has to come together and figure it out, she did the right thing, she did the wrong thing. But please, humble request from everybody, and I think that's one thing we all are feeling. Please move forward, please come together and just be the role model for our kids. That's the only job the board member, and we already elected you. So it's not our job to judge you, to figure it out who is doing right, who is doing wrong. We already did our part. We voted for you all guys. And you are here. So please come together, whatever it takes, please move forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there a Mohammed Dasuki here?
Hi, everyone. My name is Mahmoud Dasuki. No problem. I'm a resident of Monmouth Junction for the past 15 years, and I'm also a recent graduate of South Brunswick High School in 2020. I wanted to testify that our educational system, immense, amazing, one of the best in the state. But unfortunately, if we're too focused on matters that would push aside the importance of more critical topics that must be discussed, we are not going to move forward, not as an educational institute or body, but also not as a community. So I would suggest that we all figure things out, move as a body, unify, as a lot have mentioned. And I mean, this is also tax-paying people. This is money that people earn. This is hard-working money. And if we do not take that in consideration, we will not move forward. If we keep on having our money spent like this without unifying, and consulting other board members or even the superintendent, things would be a disaster. It would be a little circus like it is today. I see everyone's passion. I respect every single individual here. This is not an easy job. This is not a hobby. This is not a role. This is a job. And I respect everyone here. Not everyone deserves or earns the seat that you all have. So please, moving forward, unify, whatever it may be, charges, no charges, removal, no removal. I am not asking for any resignation. I am asking for the Board of Education to unite. That is what I want. As members and as president, you all have critical roles. You all are role models. You all play a big role, not in this board, but for the future of our youth, for the future of our children, and you all must come together so that they have a successful life like I hope to have. So please, please, please unify and put your differences aside. We need our Board of Education back.
Thank you for your comment.
Thank you.
Thank you. Jyotsna Sharma?
Good evening, everyone. I'm a resident of Monmouth Junction. Have been here in South Brunswick for the last 5 years. Before that, I was in Edison. And as a passion, I do work as a freelance producer and anchor with ITV Gold, a South Asian TV channel based out of New York and New Jersey. This is my first meeting that I'm attending, and apparently I was questioned, or many people would question many of us today, where were you before that you made your presence today? So the presence is made because something is bothering. I have a couple of questions from everyone, all of you. How many of you do not make mistakes? How many of you do not amend yourself when you make mistakes and do not admit to them? I was listening to Joycey, and she confessed that the 9 mail thing, and I had to put a question that time also, I have a purpose there. Joycey, I would like to ask you, is it a Gmail that you were handling those 9 emails with? Is it a Gmail account?
Excuse me, it's public comment. It's not
All
public
right.
questioning.
So
Thank you.
That's fine, it's a public comment, but the curiosity is still there. The reason being, you all may not be perfect in technical acumen, in legal acumen, in a lot of other things. The board constitutes as unified entity, and you all have to work together. What we appreciate as taxpayers is our time should be utilized well. Nonetheless, we all have made our presence. Some of us have made our earlier presence, and all these hours contributed together is accounting to some money that we would have made somewhere else and would have paid as taxpayers here. We are definitely spending time and money again whenever these meetings happen. And of course, whatever happened in the previous meetings was appalling. It was brutal. It was absolutely not a good example to set in front of the people, in front of the students. And I see a couple of high school students sitting here today. What is the example are we setting tonight? Or we have set before also. The question remains with you all is, please unite, sort the differences, and every person is prone to make mistakes. But if they admit their mistakes and are ready to move on, you must give them a chance. I have known Joycey for the last 5 years, an excellent community person, has been a thorough person who has guided me in a couple of situations when there had been a personal situation with my child in terms of bullying and many other things that he has faced here in this school district. I would not name him, I would not say anything, but you need to support and you need to move on together rather than putting it as a juror style here. Don't be jurors here. You're all humans together, treat it like a human being. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bina Mehta.
Good evening, South Brunswick. My name is Bina Mehta, resident of South Brunswick, Monmouth Junction, Dean Section, one of the oldest sections in South Brunswick. Luckily, like our last meeting, no migraine, no headaches. I learned to absorb it. Community, I have a question. I have a question which I asked myself today since afternoon. Where are we today? At crossroads. Look at this. Are we unified as a community? Are we divided as community? Do we have issues? Do we have complaints? Why did we make a choice to come and live in South Brunswick? Look at the last 30 years of history of South Brunswick. I'm sure, answer is same for all. We chose to come here because this community is safe, sound, and excellent schooling district. In the last meeting, I did say that we had a storm. All three districts had a storm when our budget was being challenged by Ingwa Mandarin Immersion Charter School, which was going to take away money from our students. Every taxpayer has right, that's a separate story over there, but we were successful then. We once again are at crossroads and we have issues over here. What is the problem? What do we all see? I mean, we all heard what happened over here. We all know why we are here today. We saw some faces before. We didn't see some faces before. What are the messages that we were sending today? Look at the team of people sitting over here. Who are they? Did they come from anywhere else? No, these are the people for whom each of us made a choice to vote. They have the power. They have the power of our confidence, our faith, our trust. Who are the administrators over here? These are the administrators who we believe are giving the best education available in the state, in the country, that is available at the public funding, public domain called public schooling district. Things have gone wrong. Yes, we all know that. I mean, it's not rocket science, and we don't need to be Einstein to know that. But what went wrong? One member of the board who's been sitting here for the last 5 years, and Joyce, this is with all due respect, I once again say, we are all friends over here. We are all one unified community over here. Mr. Pulaski, I'm going to ask for one please minute.
I can't. You got 15 seconds.
But let's ask
You
our
have 15
question,
seconds.
Joyce. One statement, had it been made in different way, would we be here today? What went wrong? What was the reason for Mr. Scott to be writing that letter? Go behind the reasoning. Always ask why. I requested you that day that you needed to go for inner engineering and retreat.
Bina, thank you for your comment.
Thank you. But
I appreciate
once
it.
again, time for all of us to think who we are and why we are here today.
Thank you. Lorenzo Richardson. Yeah, Jersey City. got it.
Good evening. Good evening to the board, to the residents here. My name is Lorenzo Richardson. I'm a resident of Jersey City. I saw what was going on social media and in articles, and I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. I just want to let you know I am a board member. I'm speaking on my own behalf as a resident and a taxpayer. I advocate throughout this entire state. I go to meetings in all types of cities. Camden, Inglewood, Newark, Elizabeth. I'm trying to figure out how we got here, or how you got here, excuse me. But I consider it us because we all work for children. I've been advocating for 29 years. Your board president, according to the videos I watched, admitted a mistake or an oversight, wasn't sure if something would be, I guess, legally, to be released or something. And then it just looked like everything broke loose. I don't know what happened. I'm trying to figure out why, and this is just me thinking, why, the board members could have been pulled into the room, closed session always, when those situations. According to New Jersey school boards, you can Google this. You typically don't exhibit negative behavior towards each other or towards the public in public. That's always in closed session. There's supposed to be no gotchas or surprises, whether it's by the board or by the superintendent. That's all online too. I've seen it's almost like I've seen a lot of the rules. I don't know what happened. And so I'm a little concerned because I saw, and I'm a deacon in my church, for many years, and what's troubling me is that we're in Lent, it's Women's History Month, and I see these attacks coming at this board president that I don't understand. Now, I don't know anybody here personally, but I can tell you that I've met this woman and I've seen her work with New Jersey school boards. Exemplary.
Thank you.
I don't understand.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments.
I don't understand this type of treatment and behavior. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Sir Joshua Vedamurthy.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jayashree Vedamurthy, and I'm a resident of Dayton. So many of us here tonight, myself included, are parents, and we are here for our children. I have known Joyce Mehta for the past 15 years. She's a person of integrity and character. She has been passionate about serving the South Brunswick community and our children. She was one of the first to raise the issues of stress and mental health in teenagers. She helped the district come up with a new homework policy and homework-free holidays. She has guided so many parents in advocating for their children and encouraged everyone to step up and get involved. I have seen her being very involved in our community events such as National Night Out and encouraging all of us to participate. I have always admired how empathetic she is and readily helps people in a crisis, regardless of whether she knows them personally or not. Two different occasions stand out in my mind. One where the father in the family was bedridden for a long time, and Joyce stepped in to support the mother and the child who was going to college. She reached out to many of her friends to help the family for several months. Another time was when she helped a woman with 2 young children facing domestic violence to get back on her feet and build up her life again independently. She deeply cares about all her children and works tirelessly to make South Brunswick School District the best. Each one of you bring your own unique experiences and skills to the table. And my sincere request to all of you is to set aside your differences and work cohesively as a team. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there Magesh Kamalakananan? That's a long last name, Makesh. I did my best. I'm sorry. All right.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Magesh Kamalakanan. I live in Dayton. I am a South Brunswick resident for 15 plus years, and I have 2 kids who have graduated from the South Brunswick school system. And I've been proud of our school system. I have known Joyce for more than a decade, and also as a board member for the last 5 plus years. During these years, I have watched her dedication to serving the South Brunswick community as a citizen, a mother, and a board member. She has been working very hard all these years for the welfare of the South Brunswick staff, students, and the parents. Based on my interactions and her interactions with others in the community, I have seen her as a person of integrity, sincerity, and honesty. I watched the retreat video many times, and it looked like our school superintendent and some of the board members were putting so much pressure and going to the extent of bullying the board president, Joyce. It was so unprofessional, and I never expected this from our board and the team. From watching this dispute over the past few weeks, I fully support Joyce and request that she not give up on her goal of making South Brunswick a great school district. A resignation would be an absolute disservice to the community who elected her and would only hamper the progress made so far. She has played many leading roles in the South Brunswick community. To list out a few, 5 plus years as board member, active member of the parent-teacher organization since several years, and has worked and supported domestic violence victims. And of course, her achievements. First woman of color to be the president of Board of Education. Advocated for students' mental health, equity in education campaign. I feel the board is wasting so much of time, energy, and money even after Ms. Joyce gave her statements in the last meeting. Please move on. I request the board to stop this wastage of time and taxpayer money and instead focus on the board's agenda to serve the South Brunswick community and the students. And finally, Joyce has our full support and trust, and we definitely want her to continue her role as the Board of Education president. And continue to represent and serve the South Brunswick community. To our school superintendent and board members, forget your personal differences and please, please work together for the community and the school. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Do we have Natarjan Gundar?
Say that again, David.
Natarjan?
Is it Natara?
Natarajan. Natarajan. Gundar? No?
Natarajan? No.
Is it Nirjira Magesh?
I think it's.
She's coming.
Hi, I'm Neeraja Magesh from Dayton, South Brunswick. I'm a proud parent of 2 graduated kids from the South Brunswick School District. I have known Joyce for the past 15 years. Joyce is a very dedicated person and loves to serve the community. Her first priority has always been the South Brunswick school kids. Joyce has always worked hard for the community with integrity, confidence, and honesty. The past few days have been emotional for the whole community. I appeal to the school board to concentrate on issues like the school curriculum, late school start timing, sports, music, mental health, which will help in the well-being and the growth of our kids. Joyce, please continue your work for the community and make our school district the best. We love you, Joyce.
Thank you for your comment.
Thank you.
Sir Rashmi Kashi? Yes, no? Shabarna Shani?
Subarna Sani, Monmouth Junction. Respected board members and fellow community members, I stand here today as a parent of an 8th grader who goes to Crossroads North and a 2021 graduate of South Brunswick High School. Most importantly, as a resident of this wonderful community. I'm not going to go over the proceedings of BOE retreat on March 10th, BOE meeting. We all have witnessed them as a community, and what has brought us today, here, tonight. A lot has been said and spoken about. It's time to take an action. However we want to do it, we have seen how dysfunctional this board is. And as a community member, it saddens me to see that this is who we have interested our, basically our students. We have given our children to you. You are supposed to look after our school district, and here we are split and divided. And this really, really is unacceptable, because there has been a lawyer sitting here for 3 days. This is the 3rd time you're here, ma'am, right? And she is being charged. She's by the hour here. What we are doing today, why could we have not done on March 10th? Joyce, Madam President, you decided to walk out when we wanted answers from you. We could have saved this day if you had done the answering on March 10th when we were all here. To the board, whatever is to be done, is there a way to file an ethics complaint? We need to get to bottom of this, why we were left in the lurch as a community on March 10th. Was this to be done to get people here, to make us look divided? We get claps from our friends. We have made what? We have made fan club or whatever it is. We need to stand united as a community for our students, and that's what matters. That's why we are here in South Brunswick. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Thank you.
Is there Haridev Pila?
Say that again, David.
Haridev Pila, P-I-L-L-A-I. Pila. Yeah? Can I grab that?
No.
Nope. Looking for Saba Irfan Samshi.
Hello, I am Saba Irfan Shamsi. I just have, and I know a lot of students are watching, being not truthful is a bad thing. Creating drama is a bad thing. Not answering to authority can be a crime. Yes, it can be a crime. Evading questions can be deemed like a crime in some circumstances. Am I correct? You are. I'm talking to my audience is not here. And I don't care for any fan club. And for the people who are here to support Joyce. Joyce is my friend. Like Brutus.
Please.
Sad. No, it is like that. You can sit and laugh. South Brunswick is my home, my family, my everything. And anyone who is saying that lying is okay, you are attacking my family. My my children. Not, I have one son, but yeah, I have many sons in this township. All his friends, all his class fellows, and I want a nice community. And a nice human being is truthful. South Brunswick, anyone who tells lies is not a good person. And I don't accept that person to be a leader. What happened in the last board meeting was lack of leadership. And who was the leader? Were you the leader? No. Who was the leader here of the board? Who was? Mr. Federer, were you the leader? No. But I saw Mr. Federer being the leader because we had a broken board like as if it was a banana republic. And who makes a banana republic? South Brunswick. One dictator. Look at Russia. Are we Russia? No. We need a leadership. And sadly, Joyce, I'm so disappointed in you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there Anil Kapasi? Anil Kapasi? I have Julie Ferrara.
Good evening. My name is Julie Ferrara. I live in Kendall Park. Madam President, members of the board, Mr. Federer, and staff, I am here again to ask your prudence in this decision to remove Ms. Mehta from her position as board president. There are extenuating circumstances that have yet come to light for the community. If we as a district move forward to remove Ms. Mehta, will we not be alienating the many of our residents who share her Indo-heritage? We as Caucasians are now considered the minority in South Brunswick. If they are wealthy citizens whom we hope to inspire to donate more to our school so that they are kept running in optimum fashion, are we not through this debacle telling them their place in our district leadership is not secure? I, through personal observation, have come to believe that it is often a miscalculation on the part of district staff to assume that a serving Board of Education can just be a rubber stamp organization. Especially during these difficult financial times, we need the input and decision-making power of our board so that it is not lopsided. These are the checks and balances we need. The challenges we face to keep moving forward, despite differences before us, are here. Should we not trust the community to listen to Ms. Mehta's reasons for her abstentions regarding a $12 million health clinic that the district has pushed through, or the ever-changing transportation budget that has shrunk due to a lack of manpower to run the buses? All these weigh upon us. We must keep moving forward, unafraid of change. We must all bring voices to the table, especially our ever-growing Indo-Asian population. They, with their fire and their intelligence, will guide us through the next decade.
Thank you for your comment.
Thank you.
That's it for registered voters.
Okay, so basically that's the end of all the registered speakers. Would those speakers who would like to speak and have not registered, please form a line to the side or come to the podium. Please state your name and place of residence, sir.
Thank you. My name is Mohin Patel, and I'm from Edison. I'm a Board of Ed member there. And what I would like to see and tell you, what I saw today was just despicable. To be honest with you, this is not how you treat your other board members. And I feel like in terms of what Mr. Federer had said, what the lawyer had said, and what all you guys said, that she did not violate any ethical laws or ethics. and you still want to prosecute her, basically, in front of the public. That's basically what has happened. You put her on trial in front of the public. And that is not something, she's already apologized, and you had 3 meetings in regards to this for hours on end. To do what? Go over the same facts that you came over, the same jury, the same prosecution, the same judge, and the same executioner at the same time? That is wrong. To be honest with you, you guys are expected to do a lot more than what you have done today. You're bullying her. That's basically what you
Excuse
said.
me,
I'm sorry.
can we please listen to the speaker and not interrupt? Thank you.
You're bullying her, basically, and that's exactly what has happened. She apologized. Move forward. That's what everybody wants. Everybody wants you to do your job as the board to do the right thing for the students. Move forward. That's all you need to do. Unite and move forward. Nothing else is needed. Bottom line. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Hi, my name is Tina Schlesinger. I'm a resident of Monmouth Junction as well. I wasn't registered to speak tonight, but after hearing the public comments, I feel compelled to address a few things that the public has brought up. I heard many members of our community come up here to speak to Joyce, to speak about Joyce, using adjectives that are based on past interactions, friendships, relationships, 10 years of this, that, and the other thing, okay? What we're talking about tonight is at the Board of Ed meeting is not her actions 10 years ago, 5 years ago, what she did with you personally. We're talking about her actions on the Board of Ed. We're talking about integrity and honesty, and I think a lot of members of the community have overlooked the fact that it's been proven tonight that there is no honesty happening here. I don't understand I really don't understand how the community has completely overlooked the fact that it's been proven that Joyce has lied to the public and to the Board of Ed. So I'm totally shocked by this. The second thing I want to address, multiple people, including the last speaker, came up here and talked about bullying. Bullying is a very specific term with a legal definition to it. That's not what's happening here. So I don't know why we're throwing this term around lightly. That's not what's happening here. What's happening here is that we're trying to hold our Board of Ed accountable for their actions. And that's it. We haven't seen any accountability tonight. We've only heard excuses. And I don't understand how the community is overlooking that, and one person after another is coming up and supporting the fact that, you basically are saying, oh, this person's great, we should be, we should all be like bowing down about all of these adjectives we've thrown around about her, except we're overlooking completely that honesty and integrity are two things that she's not doing. So I really don't understand that. I'm not trying to attack your character, Joyce. You may have done all of those things for all of these other people, but the fact of the matter is, everything that's happened here tonight has pointed out that you've lied about interactions with the board, and that's what this is about. So I don't understand why we're not still talking about that and why we're not going to hold you accountable. So I am anxious to see how the Board of Ed is going to move forward as a united front, of course. That's what the whole point is here. We do need to get back to board business. We do need to move on from this. But I can't even wrap my head around how we're going to get over the fact that there are people that don't trust each other here. And I think it's going both ways.
Thank you for your comment.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening, everyone. And for the record, I have no connection or knowledge or even acquaintance with
excuse me,
Ms.
sir.
Mehta.
Could
Yes.
you just state your name and
sorry,
place of
yeah.
residence? Thank you.
I am Ashutosh Sinha. I live in Dayton. I have been here since 2014. We love this community. And Joyce, I have never met you. I don't know you. But I can say one thing. I brought my daughter here, sitting over there. You are a woman of substance. Tonight you became my role model. I heard earlier someone said that we were not getting answers in yes or no. I want you to give detailed answers, Do not become yes man or no man. I am a managing director in a Wall Street firm. We celebrated International Women's Day. Lots of my colleagues over the Zoom in this situation, and lots of interns, young ladies, we encourage them that they have to stand against the status quo with a good intent. You made mistake. Your mistake is inexperience, not knowing how the system works. We all face this in our life, in our jobs, and we learn from it. Mr. Feder, your voice messages are so funny. I love hearing that. And I trust you are, and all of you are men and women of character, of substance. But this is our American value. We grow over the divide. We move ahead. I'm a first generation immigrant. I came here with 1 degree and 1 suitcase in my hand. This country adopted me, gave me citizenship. It is such a big country with big heart. If somebody made mistake, and I think if mistakes are there, let us address that and move on. My children do not deserve this kangaroo court and circus. I have attended many board meetings. I told you my designations. If this was happening in my company, you all would be fired on the spot. And if somebody accepted mistake, isn't this Jesus said and Buddha said, forgive and move along? Are we demanding a standard too high from someone which can all of you say with certainty that at every moment in your life you have stood by that standard? Be honest, put your hand on your chest and say, is our heart not big enough to forgive Ms. Mehta and move on? I deserve better. My daughter deserves better.
Thank you for your comments, sir.
Thank you.
Good evening, respected board members. My name is Jerry Shee. I came from Edison. I'm a 3-term board member, and I have been a 3-term board president. I watched the 2 meetings that happening here. I have known Joyce for probably 6-7 years. She's very respectful and professional. And I watched the video that the superintendent wrote a letter to Joyce. In that letter, superintendent said his role is to advise the board. And I hope the attorney here, and she's also board president, she will know that the superintendent reports to the board. Superintendent does not advise the board, the attorney does. So, all this shows, it's just 3 meetings. It just shows orchestrated by the superintendent. You, as a board member, you know the attorney is hired by the board to represent the district, the board. The attorney is not superintendent's attorney. Mrs. Wright, I hope you can agree with me that every board member is entitled to call the district attorney whenever they have questions. Okay. Well, all right. So if it started with that letter from superintendent to Joyce, and Joyce had a conversation with you, and in any time, if you think the conversation was inappropriate, you should have stopped it, and you should not be billing the district for that inappropriate conversation. And there were some discussions about the board committees and so on. I don't know how it works in South Brunswick, but in a lot of districts, the board president has the prerogative of appointing board members. Former BOE president mentioned that, very proud in the 2 years that he has not court attorney, but I don't know if I agree with that. I have court attorneys when I was board president, and I even court attorney this year when I had a question when I'm a board member. So, and you guys mentioned about Joyce should have contacted the New Jersey School Board. attorney, and I think that probably some of you have already done that. Every time you do that, the last word from the school board attorney is contact the school district attorney. Okay? So you have dedicated 3 sessions to take down the BOE member, and I guess that shows the priority of your district. You're $1.7 million short of the state funding, and I'm not sure this is a good time to use to attack board members. I hope today is the last meeting and that ends the show. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
How you doing? My name is Tormel Pittman. Not only a member of South Brunswick Monmouth Junction, but I'm also a civil rights advocate. And my goal is always to speak for the voiceless. My goal is to defend those who are being bullied. And watching today's, I've met Joyce years ago, but along with all the rest of you guys, when I tried to establish a black Black Parents Association in South Brunswick. That's why I worked hand in hand with Scott Fetter. And I realized this is not a surprise, I've seen this coming years ago, simply because Scott Fetter runs a dictatorship. He's not the same guy you see in front of you. Behind closed doors, his demeanor is different. He's arrogant. He's very, condescending. And he never knew that I was a civil rights advocate. And, my daughter, we ran demonstrations for George Floyd in South Brunswick. So when you ask for transparency, and what I'm getting is her reaching out to you so she can get transparency to relay it to the public, that seems to be a problem. That seems to be an attack. And watching the demeanor of each and every one of you guys' faces, you guys still have frustration. While the whole community is telling you to let it go, move on. Your faces are still wrinkled. You still have, so we know for a fact, in some way, form, or fashion, there will be some retaliation simply looking at your faces right now. That there will be some retaliation. So I'm not going to make a plea to you guys. I'm going to make a plea to the young men and women that are in those seats right there. These are your positions. You take over these positions because they don't know what they're doing. Each and every one of you guys, if you're a graduate, you're able to run. You see what's going on. You see something is wrong. And when you want to stand up for right, look what will happen to you. You use her as an example. If you ever get in these positions like that, use her as an example to fight. And you continue to fight.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Divya Sharma, and I'm a Monmouth Junction resident for the past 18 years. I wasn't scheduled to speak, so I'm going to speak from my heart, and I'm going to be a little bit emotional. So please forgive me for that. A lot of people here mentioned that, certain board members have fan clubs. Why does a person have a fan club? Because they've done something to deserve that praise. I'm here to support Joyce openly. Is she a family member? Is she a relative? No. How do I know Joyce? Her daughter and my daughter were classmates in 9th grade, and they were being harassed by one of the teachers with immense homework, with irrational grading policies. And as a parent to parent, I just happened to call Joyce. That, is this what your daughter is also experiencing? And she said, yes, absolutely. And I would like to take it up. Will you come and support me? I said, yeah, sure. She used to participate in every PTO meeting. She encouraged me to come to every PTO meeting. Did I go? No, only a couple of them. All along the way, she asked me to join her to fight the good fight for our kids, but I was scared. I was scared that the school district will retaliate against my child because I'd seen that happen with other parents. And I must mention, that I was an employee at Brooks Crossing as a teacher assistant. I am a qualified teacher. I still work as an instructional assistant in a different district. I choose not to teach, but that doesn't mean that I'm not aware of how to treat students, what curriculum should be like, what schedule should be like. I'm absolutely aware of that. But I chose not to fight and decided that I'll just get help for my child. And I got tutor after tutor after tutor. My daughter suffered from high blood pressure in 11th grade. She hated school. She said, Mom, take me to your school district, where I could have. She said, Mom, this school district is toxic. I said, no, you'll find people like that everywhere. You just gather courage and you take care of yourself. So this has been my experience. I left South Brunswick School District because I could not handle working in a toxic environment myself. Brooks Crossing, there were coteries, cabals, favorites, and I felt isolated. I decided again to run away and to work somewhere else. I'm a very happy employee in a different school district right now. So this has been my experience. Did I help Joy along at any point of time? No. Then my son enters high school. And within 1 year, I lost a happy child. I lost a happy child and he became a depressed, poor-performing kid because he was being bullied by his friends and teachers. He was failing several subjects, and I took him out. Joyce, please fight the good fight for us. I'm not courageous like you, but you are.
Thank you.
I need my daughter to have a role model like you. Thank you for everything you've done.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Lori Angermeyer, Kendall Park, New Jersey, 3 kids in the school district. I was not registered to speak tonight. I spoke last week at the meeting, and I think my basic comment was that this was a circus. Guess what? Still a circus. I've been listening to all of the speakers. I've been listening to the board members tonight, and it seems perception. Perception is a huge thing. Many, many people are looking at this one way. Many, many people are looking at this another way. Many people are very, very left, very, very right. There are so many things right now that are in question. But I think the main question is, was our board president truthful? Was our board president transparent? Was our board president spinning words? Yes, she was. Has our board president done amazing things in the past? She has. Will she do them in the future? Possibly. The problem is a huge portion of this district has no faith, no trust, will not believe anything she has to say any longer. That creates huge problems. If any of the things you did over the past several meetings that you said, that you denied, that you lied about, if you did that in your real job, your paying job, would you still have that job? No, you would face termination. Corporations in America don't stand for that. They don't listen to the excuses. They don't care. You're lucky you have a community that cares here. Many of your friends are here tonight. I've seen tons of new faces that I haven't seen. I've been coming to board meetings for the past 7 years. 7 years. And there are very familiar faces in the front row, familiar faces in the middle, familiar faces, and then there was many, many new people. A lot of kids here tonight, too. I thought there was awards for some reason. Didn't know where these kids came from. But then I thought about it. And I thought, all these kids and all these new people were supporters. And why did they come? A phone call, an email, a text. Please come say something nice about me. So,
thank you.
Here we go, my friends.
Joyce.
Thank you.
Joyce.
Thank you for your comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Your time's up. Thank you.
Hi.
You can say the last person's up there. David.
Joyce.
You can make an announcement.
Hi, I'm Nurul. I'm from Dayton, South Brunswick, and I'm here since 2009. And as everybody said, I do admire Joyce here. I have known her. I have seen her in all the WhatsApp groups we have. And I saw her friends advocating. I admired it. And what I wanted to say, everybody, is we support her, and at the same time, the name calling of any other board members is also should not be allowed, right? So if we support her things, and at the same time, every individual has their own friends and things to say about the other person. So it's not advisable to say about anybody because they are here to support. When they are here in this place, which we are not ready to take it, they had the passion to do that. So we have to appreciate it, and we should be thinking about before what we are name calling other board members as well. That's the one point I wanted to make. And it's already 10 p.m. and we don't have to have, and it's already 10 p.m. We don't have any other more points. Just one question. If the question's been answered earlier, we don't have to sit here. That's it. That's the one question I have.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, in the effort of time, I think we should limit it to a few more speakers. So one, two, do we have any, or you speak? Okay, I got 3. Okay.
I'll take 2.5 minutes.
I'll time you.
Please do. Eric Harrison of the law firm of Methvestel and Warble up the road. I was retained by Ms. Mehta at her expense, solely at her expense. We met this past weekend, and she has waived attorney-client privilege with me so that I can add a little bit further insight. Joyce shared with me the communication since January. I took a look at board policies. I advised her because she truly wanted to know from me, have I done something wrong? I've learned that the board attorney is often in a conflicted position, especially when I'm being accused of a breach of ethics by the superintendent who reports to the board. Can you help me? So I looked, and I wrote a letter to the board that I sent this morning, which is a public record. It can be requested through the Open Public Records Act, where I analyzed what I think had occurred. It's the opinion of one attorney. People don't like attorneys. I don't expect you to be convinced by me. If you came here with a particular position, I don't see me swaying you. But I want you to know that that's available for you. At the end of my letter and in executive session today, I said, the most I can do, the best I can offer, and the best thing for my client is also the best thing for you. I'd like to volunteer to try to help a peacemaking process. You have an excellent attorney in Kerry Wright. She's top-notch. Her firm is top-notch. I would not want her job. I don't want her job. But in terms of how she's gone about it and everything she's done in handling this drama over the last few months, Kerry's aces, and I've known her for more than 15 years. I expect nothing less from her. But I do want to give you a little bit of perspective about how things are elsewhere. Down the road at West Windsor Plainsboro board meetings, up the road in Edison, down Route 18 in East Brunswick, a board attorney is present at all of those meetings all the time. Now, as taxpayers, you might say, what a colossal waste of money, hours upon hours. What I have found in the 27 years I've been practicing, about 20 of them for school boards, is a little money spent on having a lawyer at hand now saves a lot of money in the future. It's clear, I'm not looking for applause, I just want to make this point. It's clear that a lot of these people do not like each other and are never going to like each other, are not going to have faith in each other. What can that mean? If they file ethics complaints against each other, somebody's paying a lot of money to prosecute that ethics complaint. Somebody's paying a lot of money to defend that ethics complaint. If the board attorney had been around and more at hand, and I'm not criticizing anyone because every district does it the same, but differently, but suggesting a way to move forward to have the attorney more present. I offered to be a peacemaker. That offer continues to stand. My last piece of advice is, since we can't get along and like and respect each other, respect the roles that we're in. And even if we have to deal with each other at arm's length, respect the role that each person is filling, including board member, including superintendent, including board attorney, including board president as well, whether you like her or respect her or not. She is the board president, and that goes for the board members and the administration and the
Thank
attorney
you.
as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Lisa Garwood. I've been here, I don't know, 20, 25, 30 years. My children went through South Brunswick, and I'm a retired South Brunswick teacher. I have been listening at home and just drove here. I don't go out to public places because I'm high risk, but this is incredibly important. Some of what I've been hearing tonight, first of all, thank you to Dr. Federer for keeping such faultless records that you were able tonight to not give opinions, but fact after fact after fact with proof to back it up. We're not talking about mistakes here. We're talking about lies that when questioned were compounded upon, and were still compounded upon tonight. When Joyce, you said maybe part of the problem was your understanding of English, and then said you were from London. I don't even understand that. The board is united. As a matter of fact, this is maybe the most united I've seen you in a really long time, because you're united against evasiveness, you're united against lies, and you're united against faulty leadership, and I thank you for that. The evasiveness is still going on tonight. Your responses that were not responses to the questions that board members politely asked you were not answers, they were evasions. I noticed a lot of deflection going on by the people here. It's not about the reactions in the faces that the board members made after being lied to continually. I thought you did pretty well when I watched the retreat, because I don't know how I would have stayed calm being lied to with lies that changed over and over and over again, as Dr. Feder proved tonight. People talked about role models. We need role models who, when put in positions of power, do it humbly. They don't lie and then lie to the public and then continue to lie. And I will remind you all that the whole community is not here tonight. I think everyone sees on the crazy public media posts that the whole community doesn't agree, but that the vast majority, like you've heard tonight, we want the board to be able to work together. But the board cannot work together with a dishonest leader. So Joyce, I ask you, for the sake of this district that you claim to love so much, step down and let someone with integrity take your role.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Manjari, and I have twins who go to high school in South Brunswick. This is my first meeting. I've always wanted to be a part of, the process, but I just realized one thing. One of the gentlemen, the board member here, told that it was, we always went to the superintendent to ask permission to go to the attorney or something. And I just felt that, why is it a big deal? Why, if the president changes the protocol and goes herself, why was it considered, such a big deviation? I'm not here, I don't know the whole details of what happened. Perhaps Madam President is in the wrong, perhaps it is, but I think that she should be given a fair trial, or whatever it is, the legal recourse that she requires to speak her position. And again, I also echo most of the sentiments of the parents here, that there are much more pressing needs for the students. For example, mental education, extracurriculars, clubs, music, so many things, even like counseling for higher education. There are so many needs that need to be addressed by the board. And I would really request that you all put your efforts into more meaningful things that would make more sense to my kids and their future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is John O'Sullivan. I live in Monmouth Junction, New Jersey.
and I know some members of the board here for over 20 years. Yes, I am a friend of Joyce. I have seen her work for the community, and she has done a good job in working with the children in the high school, helping out on social events in the township. Next, I haven't been to a school board meeting in over maybe 15 years. Okay, folks, I was on an elected board in this township. I know what it's like. Do you think I like being up there with those? I can't mention because this is being broadcast. As you people have to sit up there and then go home and scream and yell just like I had to do. But get your act together and work with each other. We have a good town on the governmental side and the school board side. So please get your act together, work with each other, and look out for the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any more speakers?
Yeah, that's it.
No. Thank you. So moving on with the agenda, I'd just like to make a statement, please, to everybody. My heartfelt gratitude to my family and to each and every one of you for your overwhelming support and for attending tonight. I was proudly elected by this wonderful community to serve the students of South Brunswick and their families. However, when I was accused of potential ethical violations, I did consult with the board attorney to learn if I had done anything wrong. This is not my personal matter, but board business for which I have every right to contact the attorney and for which I was told I was not allowed to pay out of my own pocket. In fact, I was doing what I understood board presidents do all the time in school districts all over the state, using the board's professional service for legal guidance. One thing I never had an opportunity to learn from the board attorney was that of our discussions was whether our discussions would be confidential or not, because she represents the board as a body and not me as individually as board president. There was a misunderstanding of this relationship on my part. When I was confronted by my colleagues with questions about my conversations with Ms. Wright, I was not forthcoming because I was surprised and felt that they were intruding on a confidential communication. I subsequently learned that I was wrong and that my discussions with Ms. Wright were not confidential to her and me. I truly regret my handling of the situation, for which I have publicly apologized for my lack of transparency. While I hoped that that would be the end of it, apparently it was not. Tonight, I am being subjected to a smear campaign in which the prosecutor and the jury are one and the same. This is not only unfair, but it is contrary to the spirit of collaboration in the best interests of South Brunswick students. Board of Education meetings were not designed for such trials where there is no due process, for gathering evidence, no legal representation, no cross-examination, and no offering of witness testimony. So this process is highly prejudicial and discriminatory. Taxpayers are paying the price for this kangaroo court. Could there have been a better process? I will not be bullied by anyone, including the superintendent, who is our employee and not our boss. This bullying, intimidation and harassment has continued for some time, but it is time for it to end today. I fully support transparency, but I also support due process. I leave the question of why these vicious attacks began and the ridiculous mockery of our South Brunswick Board of Ed to your respected judgment. Neither will I compromise my integrity nor my independent judgment when it comes to voting on items that are in the best interests of our school district. Sometimes bringing change comes at a high price, and I guess I'm paying for it now. Based on the responses that I have received from the community urging me to stay and work for the students, teachers, and the school district, I will not be resigning from the board. Nor will I be stepping down as president. I do humbly request that the personal attacks end, that we work together in the best interests of South Brunswick students. This is what I intended to continue to do as board member and as a board president, with collaborative relationships with our board and our superintendent. Thank you all. Moving on to the next.
I'd like to make comments too. You made a comment? I think the board has the right. Do they not?
So, comments?
Do you have any comments? Do you want me to? You go first.
If there are no comments, can we move on to the next? No, okay.
So, Joyce, thank you so much, Madam President, for your heartfelt apology as well as the statement that you just made. I wanted to address the young students in our gathering here. This is democracy at its full play for you here. As somebody commented in the audience that these are your seats, which you have to take. We are paving the way for you. We are going to work together. This board, as I said, is democracy at its full play, so you can see how we are interacting. We promise to be good role models for you. Joyce, thank you for your comments. I think after this, we're going to be moving to executive session.
Are there any more comments from respected board members? Mr. Keener, sir.
Yes, you can. Thank you. Joyce, I truly believe that you did not realize the havoc that your actions were going to bring on this board. As has been stated here tonight, right now, the board, the committee, and the district are divided. This all could have been avoided with just telling the truth. We need to teach our students, as been said here tonight, to answer questions when asked, not dance around and give no answers. It's not the right message to our students. In order for us to move forward, we have to have trust. It's going to take sacrifices to fix this. Our students cannot be the sacrifice. We need to do a reset. And in order to do so, we need to make some hard decisions. And I believe we need to have some extremely open conversations in executive session. And you need to be open to what we, the 9 of us, can do as a board in order to move forward. And again, I truly don't believe you did this and you didn't realize the havoc you were going to raise. So I ask you to think about it and be open to us in executive session. Thank you.
Mrs. Rogers.
Thank you. I'd like for us to gather our thoughts on what we've just learned this evening and the passion that everybody's exhibited tonight. I have also known Joyce, excuse me. I have also known Joyce for over 12 years. In fact, I was the one that encouraged her to run for the Board of Ed. We've been through a great deal over the past 2.5 months. I believe that this board has acted in the best interest of South Brunswick to ensure honesty and integrity and to ensure we followed ethics to which we swore an oath. When a board member, no matter who it is, displays a lack of these values, it is disappointing, upsetting, and quite frankly, unacceptable. I want to be clear. One question was asked of Ms. Mehta about 2 phone calls to our board attorney, Ms. Wright, during the March 3rd review of legal invoices, which started at 6 p.m. Mrs. Mehta called Ms. Wright that same day on March 3rd at 3:30, 2.5 hours or so before the meeting, to ask whether it was appropriate to advise the board that she contacted Ms. Wright in January regarding Mr. Fetter's letter. Ms. Wright said yes. Several hours later, Ms. Mehta claimed she did not remember why she called the board. Then during the retreat, she claimed it was about the reorganization, then Robert's rules, and to understand legal points, for example, on CUSAC, which has nothing to do with the board. It was frustrating. Days later, in a social media post, she did remember. As well, during the March 3rd meeting, Mrs. Mehta stated that she would be sending all board members a copy of the text, emails, as well as a timeline of activities. We have still not received any of this information, but now we understand we will receive it by noon tomorrow. From challenging the accuracy of the invoices from our board lawyer, who is a well-respected lawyer, a current Board of Ed member in Chester Township, and a recent NJSBA Board Member of the Year, to inflammatory comments about special ed students, to confusing statements, I am concerned of how we can move forward. Because I, and I would imagine every member here, though I can't speak for them, is concerned about trust. If we cannot trust our fellow board members, where do we go? Where do we go from here? We have become dysfunctional, and South Brunswick deserves better. Instead of citizens turning into Board of Ed meetings to learn about district initiatives, the good things we've done, and the roadmap for future success, they're going to be turning to this. We've received multiple emails from taxpayers. We've heard from the citizens during public comment over the course of now 2 evenings. The taxpayers elected us to do the right thing, and parents, as well as staff, must be able to trust us to do the right thing. We as a board cannot require her to step down. Per the policies and bylaws, it is up to Mrs. Mehta to make that decision. If she chooses not to, then we need to move forward. I am concerned that this will sadly serve, however, as a constant distraction. The South Brunswick School District has a long history of being a strong, functional body, a lighthouse district. We were not like this 1 year, 2 years, 5 years ago. But sadly, over the past 2 months, it has devolved. And I'm very saddened by this. I truly am. It is not who we are. This is not a trial. This is about board governance. The situation, these concerns, have unfortunately preoccupied Mr. Fetter and the administration team, as well as us, from our core responsibilities of serving the community and our students. We have lost focus on what we need to accomplish. Respectfully, Mrs. Mehta, you need to consider the impact of your words on this district and your ability to collaborate or preside over this board in order to move the South Brunswick School District forward. For I am concerned that further action may be taken at the state level, because as the School Ethics Act states, its intent is to ensure that the conduct of school officials holds the respect and confidence of the people, and that we must avoid conduct which is in violation of their public trust, or which creates a justifiable impression that the public trust is being violated. With that, I yield.
Do we have any more board comments to my right? Seeing none. To my left? Seeing none. Moving on to action items. The action items? No action items? Okay. So be it resolved now, can I have be it resolved that the Board of Education, this Township of South Brunswick, hereby moves into executive session in accordance with the Sunshine Law, Chapter 231 of the Public Laws of 1975, 1046 to 10421, to discuss the following: communications covered by attorney-client privilege. Be it further resolved that the discussion conducted in an executive session can be disclosed to the public at such time as the matters have been resolved. Formal action may be taken at the meeting. Can I have a motion, please, to move into executive? Motion, Mrs. Karthik. Can I have a second? Mr. Nathanson. Any nays? Any abstentions? Discussions? Seeing none. Good night, South Brunswick, and thank you so much.